DIYers, we are wired, we are ready, and we're here with a special guest. First and foremost, on your way in here, please make sure that you hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not done it by now. I told you I'm coming back here with great content, and today is no exception. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, today I am joined by a legend in the game. I am joined by the young MC. First of all, welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Curtis. This is my pleasure to be here. I sought you out. You know what I'm
saying?
I took the drive. I got people calling me, but I'm like, I'm doing this first. So,
and you made it known too. Shout out to the MEC podcast. When you were on there, you were like, after your Drink Champs interview,
right? You
said there's 2 podcasts that I'm going to, and you sent me that clip, and I'm like, nah, I'm getting pranked. What's going on? What's going on? Maybe I was talking too much about Spotify or something. They were like, let's try to find out how to get to Kurt. No, but all that I said, man, I am honored. First of all, I had to double check when you sent me the DM. I was like, we're in the age of AI now. We're in the age of trying to have to confirm things. But sure enough, man, it was the legend, young MC himself. And I sat down and I really took the time to listen to the interview and see, what holes could be filled in. But first of all, how did I even get on your radar?
Couple things. I tend to do a lot of research in all the stuff that I do. So when I was like researching making new music and just the landscape of online, celebrity or online information and the like, a lot of your videos would pop up and I would always get a jewel from like 1 or 2 of them. And then also, man, I told you in terms of your voice, most of these guys doing it, at least that I was listening to, are like East Coast, Midwest, Southern, whatever.
Right.
But I hear my, my LA past,
yeah.
When I hear you talk, and like I said, I'm tempted to call you nephew because the tree you're from is, I'm part of the root of that. So,
yeah.
This is one in terms of my LA history that I felt I needed to do. And even when I bring up like Tumex and Lemno and, people like that, you're like, those aren't people that I met because I made Bust a Move. Those are people that I met because I work with RBX, you know what I mean, out here. And we drive, this studio's in the garage and this person's here and that person's there. And all of a sudden, who the local acts are who are opening up for the nationals when they come in town.
Right.
You know what I mean? And even driving here, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to put out exactly where you are, but driving here, Power 106 is losing signal. And I'm like, oh, man, Power 106. What about, KGGI?
Right.
Turned it on, coming clear as hell. I'm like, I remember that. KGGI had Bust a Move in rotation when you were 2 years old.
2 years old. So I was born in 85. This is 87?
87, 88.
88, okay.
Yeah, so 3 years old.
Yeah, and that's a song that, obviously, with the time that it came out, I'm a baby, you're right? Mm-hmm. But all throughout the 90s, I feel like anytime you saw TriStar Pictures, coming of age movie, you hear the first few loops of that song. Matter of fact, I know they mentioned it, but was it in Bust a Move? Was it in Dudes, Where's Your Car?
Yeah, Dude, Where's My Car?
My car? So there's like so many of those movies that I feel like you became that anthem for so many people in so many areas. Even my mom. You met my mom this morning, and she was like, "Man, it's an honor to meet you." And just seeing how many places you've had a hand in. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of things. One thing that we discussed prior was that, there's a lot of history that you obviously have, and you've discussed at length, especially on that Drink Champs interview. Shout out to Nori and everyone over there. But I want to focus more so in this conversation about the things that you're currently doing right now, because I find them to be very inspiring to artists that, they get to a certain age and they feel like, is this the beginning? Is this the end? Society will try to tell me that it is, but there's so many things that you're doing that I feel like are extending the career of the MC, the artist. Right. And so want to get through all of that, but I first do want to talk about Bust a Move. So what year was that actually recorded?
Right, so here's the thing now. You probably, if it's Bust a Move itself, you probably would have been between 3 and 4 because it came out in May of 89. That's when it came out. Know How was before summer of 88. I'm pretty sure KGGI was playing that. I was getting FM plays. That's when Delicious first signed to Island. So that was one of the first Island releases. But at the time, you don't know. I mean, I'll put you in my head.
Right.
I had co-written Wild Thing, co-written Funky Cold Medina. I watched Wild Thing go double to triple platinum. Funky Comedina just coming out. They're rock songs. They're faster.
Right.
Tone has a different voice. His voice is very distinctive. And then I write Bust a Move for myself. Different voice, different cadence, slower speed, more of an R&B or funk kind of track. Girls singing in the hook. It was still different and new. So I'm scared at that point because I'm like, I'm not doing a rock record. I can't break on K-Rock because that's where Wild Thing had broken.
So Wild Thing was playing on K-Rock at that point.
K-Rock, that was the first one before any other pop station or black station that picked it up. It was K-Rock. They were playing The Cure and they were playing Wild Thing.
That's crazy.
So watching that, I'm like, okay, what is my record going to do? So and once again, there's no internet. Cell phones are as big as this table.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it calls $100 a minute. Not everybody has cable in the house, so you don't know how well the record is doing until you land in the town and they sing it back to you. And that would happen over and over and over and over again. Now there's Billboard magazine and there's R&R and all that.
But how do you measure that? Like,
you ain't looking at trades. You know what I mean? And even then, rap music is discounted. You know what I mean? So they don't really have a rap chart.
Right.
And then my, Bust a Move stayed on the hot 200 or whatever for 40 weeks. Part of that was because the video hit first, then we got sales, then we got radio play.
Okay.
So by the time the radio play kicked in, the video was kind of calming down and the sales were kind of worn out. So it never got to the point where all of the three came together. This is pre-SoundScan. So the record only got to number 7 on the pop charts, where I would take Bust a Move over 100 number 1 records during that period of time. I'd say my record was a bigger record, but just because of how things landed, you say the Bust a Move, Bust a Move was number 7. As
an artist, I want to talk more about the creative process. Sure. As you're writing a record like that, are you getting that feeling that this, because, as an artist for myself, I have these moments where a record would just come together mysteriously easy in comparison to other ones. Was there anything about that you kind of felt like I might have one, or how did you kind of?
All right. I'm a college student at the time. Okay. So I'm doing my homework during the day. They give me the track. I write the song to it. I call it Make That Move. So I don't know if I had Shalimar on the brain. I call it Make That Move. They changed it to Bust a Move. But it was a 90-minute process, flow of consciousness. No rhyming dictionary, no anything. Just
90 minutes?
Because my homework was over and I had to go to bed.
And you were going to USC at the time?
USC, yeah.
Okay.
USC, got my bachelor's in economics.
Nice.
So this is beginning of, I got signed in 87. So this would have been in my either end of junior year or beginning of senior year.
Okay.
With that.
So you already got the demands of just being a student, which is already taxing.
And
how were you able to balance it?
Well, I mean, a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, had to remind me that when I got my contract, I didn't have a lawyer, but I was a member of student senate, student government.
Oh, wow.
So I literally took my Delicious Vinyl contract to the law school representative of student senate in USC. I said, "Yo, could you look this over?" A guy named Dave Simon, and shout out to Phil Clement.
Right.
I took it to him to look over. There's only so much he could do. Every contract's going to bind you at some point, especially your first one. So you sign it and you keep it moving, and that's what happened.
It's incredible to me too, especially when you watch a lot of the documentaries of that time period, and artists are telling you, I was young, I didn't, I was signing, and but it seems like you had a wherewithal of understanding what was necessary. I heard you speak about it in another interview about at that time, if you wanted to kind of make it in that space, you needed to sign a deal. But for you to have the wherewithal to say, like, okay, this is how I'm going to strategically play this.
Right.
What do you think kind of gave you the advantage to play it that way?
Oh, because they had me write for Tone. Because I wrote for Tone and I watched the record blow up. And I'm like, wait, I don't have publishing on that. And then I don't have publishing on mine. Oh, okay. You want to hear the Bust a Move verse? Let me read it to you over the phone. Cool. Oh, you like it? Nah, I'm selling it to RCA. I'm selling because I'm in the red with you. So I'm selling it to RCA so I could put some money in my pocket unless I get publishing back on my first 3 or 4 singles, and they gave it to me.
Yeah.
That was just, that's from my college dorm room, but it was more of a move of desperation. I usually wouldn't do business like that, but it's like this is where I was. So all of a sudden we have, songwriters addendums and all that kind of stuff, and that's a 7-figure decision from that.
Sheesh. Yeah, it's crazy because I was watching an interview with Master P recently where he was talking about not making business decisions when you're desperate.
Yeah.
He had a deal on the table, I think, from Jimmy Iovine that he talks about, and at the time, they offered him $1 million, and he got in an argument with his brother on the plane back because he denied it.
Right.
And he's like, "No, this is confirmation that we're going to be good." Do you feel like the Wild Thing record and what was the other one? I'm sorry, the
Funky Cole Medina.
Funky Cole Medina. Do you feel like those were not that you needed it, but those were kind of like validation that, when the pendulum swings back and it's time for the focus to be on me, I already have this set up to be all right.
I knew at the very least I'd be getting writer's share from those.
Okay.
But it's before that money really starts rolling in. And I knew that what I wanted to do as an artist and as a lyricist, I felt I was just the best lyricist, especially coming out here from the East Coast. But I come out from the East Coast, but I'm not claiming East Coast. I'm like jumping up on stage saying New York, New York, while I'm in LA taking LA people's money. That just didn't make sense to me.
Man.
So, and I've had a lot of LA artists come up to me and say how much of an inspiration I was to them because I claimed LA, because I went up the hill on Alvarado to K-Day, because I did all these things, and I wasn't saying, I can't wait to get back to New York. And I tell people, if I stayed in New York, you wouldn't have heard of me. The flexibility to make a Wild Thing, to make a know-how, to make a lot of these records comes from the freedom that a lot of West Coast producers and just the West Coast sensibilities of being more musical and having different BPM ranges and that kind of thing. You just have more flexibility to do stuff. So that's where I came from. And even though, raised in New York and learned how to rhyme in New York, a lot of people think that I was a West Coast, that I was born and raised on the West Coast, but I wasn't.
I sure did.
Exactly.
The way my pops played you, I for sure thought you were West Coast artist.
But that's fine. For me, that's fine. But a lot of that had to do with the delicious vinyl production and then me rhyming over that. And it wasn't break beats, and it was just a different approach. So they definitely broke some ground with that, and I just went along with it. My accent sounds more Midwestern than it does anything else. So it's like, so I just went.
And a lot of folks in LA are transplants as well. So I mean, it doesn't. Yeah. There is a very specific way that we talk out here, but there is a lot of folks who you think about even a Corrupt by way of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But we all got family. I know so many folks in LA who have family in Chicago.
Right. No, most definitely.
Right. So,
but if somebody say I'm gonna get in the core, I'm gonna drive 30 minutes.
Right.
You're not gonna hear that out of New York.
You're not gonna hear that.
You know what I mean? So I mean,
I remember the first time, my grandmother and my aunt took me on a cruise, and the first time I ever talked to anybody from New York, and it was just I'm just sitting here looking at them, and I'm like, Wu-Tang wasn't lying. This is really how y'all talk. He was like, I got tired. He said, "Oh, B, you can't even break night." So what does that mean? What you mean break? But I love that, and to me, that's something that maybe. And I'm just wondering if that's where the respect came from a lot of people, and that you were, kind of vouching and claiming the West, even by way of being from the East Coast at a time where it wasn't really a popular thing to do.
Well, I don't. Well, the popularity,
or as popular to say that you're from.
Okay,
right.
I think the popularity thing comes from how it was judged, because when I grew up, you could literally look at the entire hip hop world on a subway map. Public Enemy's over here, LL's over here. This group is in Brooklyn. These guys. Boogie Down Productions is from the Bronx, and you could literally all the records you played as a kid. You could see it on a subway map, and then when that expanded, people that would have that same subway map view would be like, well, anything outside of this doesn't really matter that much, until it got to the point where it did. Then lyrically, they said, well, nobody can really mess with a New York rapper's flow. Right. Well, I had a New York rapper's flow when I was out here, rhyming over, West Coast sound and stuff, and even the stuff in Bust a Move and a lot of stuff in my first album is just a lot of West Coast influence. And I'm rhyming over the top of that with the same cadence of anybody that I heard in New York. So people may talk a lot about the crossover and whatever they want to say. They won't say that I can't rhyme. They'll never say that I can't spit.
No, for sure.
So that's always been my thing. I'll make a pop record, but it'll be, I've had a lot of people come up to me say they tripped over themselves trying to do Bust a Move in karaoke. I'm like, that's what I want. That's what I want.
Believe you me, especially out here. I feel like depending on what circles you're in, there's a lot of karaoke culture out here. There's a lot of folks out here who really are serious about their karaoke. I didn't know it was a real thing until I went to one, and I was like, no, this person has a fan base
right.
for just doing karaoke songs of other people's stuff.
Right.
But I will say, the East Coast, West Coast, whatever biases that people may have, I always feel like the best music came as a byproduct of folks who were seasoned in all those regions.
Sure.
Right, either had experiences there or worked with East Coast producers,
Right.
like a Q, for instance, having the flexibility to reach over. I just feel like that made the best. Even like when Jay Dilla came out and met Madlib, that was a completely different Dilla that we saw, because now you're incorporating some of the West Coast swing and some of the sound, the sound choices. But I think that's definitely incredible. So Bust a Move comes out. How deep into how far after it was actually released did you know, like, oh, this is that kind of a record?
I mean, it came out in May, and I was just on the road constantly because I graduated. It came out finals week of my senior year. My parents are like,
Wait,
okay.
what?
My parents are like, get this music stuff out of your system. Well, go ahead, tour this summer, and then when that all falls apart, you can go to grad school or get a regular job and not that they were poo-pooing
Sure.
it, but 98, 99% of people that do music have to do something else.
Sure. Even with a song like that, I mean, it wasn't anything that you could kind of tangibly.
But dog,
yeah.
it wasn't a song like that until it became a song like that. It's not a song like that after a month or two or whatever.
Sure.
It doesn't become a song like that until it keeps going. Like if you're saying 40 weeks from May is the next, February or March. You see what I'm saying? So
How do you measure that? I don't even know that it's going to happen.
It outlasts the
right.
principal's office on the chart, and it outlasts it. So Bust a Move comes out. They feel it had enough of a run. They put out principal's office. That goes up and down, leaves the chart. Bust a Move's still there.
Oh, wow.
I come off up and down. Bust a Move is still there. You see what I'm saying? So only then it's the longevity of it, as opposed to and anything specifically on one listen, because that record is so verbose.
Right.
You're not going to get everything out of one listen. And the interesting part of it, because I got video and then sales and then radio, it never was beat down, played 80 times a week on any station, so people never really got sick of it. That's where the licensing came from. So I was able to get a lot more licenses because people had a fond memory of the record.
Sure.
And they said, I'd like to put this in my project. So all of a sudden, literally everything from, Dude, Where's My Car, William Shatner doing it in a Priceline commercial. You know what I mean? Just
crazy.
Spoken word in front of like Lisa Loeb and Ben Folds.
Incredible.
And it's only because I listen to that kind of me. I'm like, that's who that is. Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, you want it. I'm like, really? Cool.
I did it. What moment do you feel like is the most memorable? And speaking about those moments, which one for you was the one where you're like, oh, this is a
it was
huge
something
cultural moment?
It was something not cultural moments. It's something not visual. Before 9/11, George W. Bush would take a lot of vacations in the ranch in Texas. Ari Fleischer, who was his press secretary,
Sure.
got up during one of the parties down at the ranch and did a perfect rendition of Bust a Move. That story appears in, I want to say, U.S. News and World Report or one of those type magazines, and my financial advisor sends me the story. So the fact that it went in that circle and came back to me that way,
right?
That's like, okay, I'm
touching all segments of whatever your experience is.
Exactly.
Man, so that I obviously wanted to go there because I think there's a lot of lessons, especially my audience of independent artists and DIYers. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from that, because I felt like you had a different experience afterwards, because there's so many artists who have songs that don't do as well but do really well, and they're not able to see kind of the fruits of that success.
Well, I mean, look, you have a record blow up that big, and then somebody will come to you with a 7-figure check and says, I'll give you this for your publishing. You know what I mean? So it takes a lot, economics degree being one thing. My year for that was around 2000 or so. I'd written a song for a girl named Anastasia,
right?
Called Not That Kind, and I have a bigger percentage of that than I have of Bust a Move or any other song I made, and that's the one multi-platinum record that I have written that I have the entire track.
Right.
Like everything else was lyrical, maybe a little melody stuff here and there, but I literally did the entire track on that. And so that was something I was really proud of. But anyway, from that, and I've said this before, I had a $300,000 year just in publishing. So that record plus what Bust a Move was coming. So my lawyer at the time, Gary Greenberg, shout him out, love the man. He comes to me and says, I got another client, $1 million publishing deal. I know with this, I can get you $1 million publishing deal. Well, I'm going back to my economic classes saying, with a regular sunset, if I get $300K this year and it just goes down in the normal fashion, I'm going to see $1 million in 4 or 5 years.
If I could just stay patient.
If I don't, but if I sold it for $1 million now, the company that buys it, they could make $2 million off of me. And what I'm going to do, take the $1 million I have to pay the lawyers to sue them to see if there's another $1 million?
Right.
I'll show.
See, and that's something that I think about when I see artists that are selling off their catalogs while they still, they have an active career, but you can tell, like, based upon the effort they're putting in other areas like acting and merchandising, they're probably not going to dedicate nearly the amount of energy they did to music again after this. They'll sell it off, and I'm like, I wonder if they would be in a position to do the same thing that you ended up doing, especially now that the numbers are now 200 million, 300 million for an entire catalog. They want to buy that off.
Yeah, those are really unique situations.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Everyone has a different one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not... You're talking about, if you're talking about rap, you're talking about sample-based music. You see records with, 8, 10 writers on it and all that other stuff, label interests, production companies, all that stuff. Those numbers can get whittled down so much. And there may be a gross number where they say, okay, the whole catalog's worth this, but the actual artist's
take
portion,
home.
Exactly.
Right.
They're not going to say what the manager took or what the person that signed the initial production deal took or the person that you owe money to from the whole time that said, okay, when you sell your catalog, I get a piece, what they took. You know what I mean? Or stuff you took advances against. They're not going to say anything about that. They'll just say the big number of what they feel that, and most of those deals are made with non-disclosure agreements anyhow. So most of the time,
they couldn't even disclose anything.
Yeah. Most of that's going to be speculation.
That's interesting. So I don't want to talk about, obviously, the details of this because there's NDAs that have been signed, but can you kind of give us, I guess, an educational piece in what you did differently that allowed you to, because you forego the publishing on, is that the terminology for it?
Well, it's not even forego. I mean, the Wild Thing I wrote and I didn't get publishing on it. Okay. Funky Comedina I wrote. My original record deal did not give me publishing. Okay. So, and it's fair in terms of they're giving money to make the record and all this other stuff, and they're paying me to, $6,000 or $9,000 a year, whatever it would be, to engage my services. But in exchange for that, I'm signing away my publishing to get my record made. So I'm still getting my royalties from the master side, and I'm still getting my points.
Sure.
So that whole situation with Bust a Move, I was able to get my publishing back for that.
And that the term is reversion.
Yeah, well, reversion is 35 years.
35 years.
So reversion more involves the copyright of the song, which is master publishing. When you sign a record deal, the record company owns the copyright. All right, and that's in a lot of cases, if it's a big record, they're putting millions of dollars into promoting the record, and whether it be for licensing, for TVs, movies, whatever, or publishing interest, they have to make that back. Especially now when you're talking the age of streaming, they're not making money off a pphysical product.
It's nasty out here now.
Right. So they have to make that back. So they make you sign away those things. 35 years go by. That copyright that they owned free and clear now becomes non-exclusive. And now you, as the artist and the co-creator of the song or the creator of the song, have the right to go shop. Within the first 35 years. Sure. If they wanted to put it in a movie, they want to put it in, Dude, Where's My Car? Right. They don't have to come to me. They don't have to. They don't have to come to me, and the portion they get is per the record deal I signed the 35 years ago.
Would you have a say if they put it in something? I think you kind of mentioned this in another interview, but would you have a say if they put it in something that maybe you didn't feel like aligned with your brand?
I wouldn't necessarily have that, but they're slitting their own throat then. If they're making all the money off of how good my brand looks, if they put something in it that makes the brand look bad, it's going to hurt them. The irony of it is, though, the right after my reversion is like an irritable bowel syndrome commercial with Busta Move in it. You know what I mean? So it's like I kind of it's like, okay, we're both taking a ride now.
Wait, what portion did they use? Because if they use
I have no. You know what? I think they use the instrumental.
The instrumental. Okay.
I don't think
Busta Move is crazy to use that in context of that. But this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying so much that they would do it always maliciously,
right?
But sometimes I see this when I work with sync opportunities and companies, and it's like, oh, you guys don't know anything about music, but you're asking me to make all these changes that don't even make sense in terms of the time signature. They don't make sense of anything. And I've had it where I've literally been on the phone and I'm like, I don't know what you guys want.
Yeah,
I'll work with it and I'll try, but as a musician, as an artist, I'm just like, I'll figure it out. And then when you get it, like one guy told me one time, he said, we like it, Curtis, but could you make it more gangster? I said, my mind, I'm thinking like DPG, I'm thinking about like Death Row, I'm thinking about like all, and I said, wait a minute, could you define gangster for me? Because he's a white dude. And he was like, just a second. He gets on his phone and he pulls up a B.O.B. record. And no disrespect to B.O.B. and Lil Wayne.
Wow.
But I listened to it and I'm like, this is not even a gangster record, but it was minor chords. It was dark.
Interesting.
So then I look at that and I'm like, so the question I'm asking now is, you know, what about those times where they make a decision that's just out of pure ignorance? And it may end up hurting the brand. Are you able to kind of give them some information and say, I don't know about this one?
Well, usually, I mean, that would usually be stopped before it even got to me.
You know somebody else would.
Well, once, I mean, look, if the record has been licensed that many times, then there are a lot of people looking out for that brand. There's a lot of people looking out to say, okay, don't mess up the gravy. Right. Don't mess up the gravy.
You messing it up for all of us.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have to worry about it getting to me. Like I can't remember. I mean, I've seen, you know, like Christmas toys and that kind of stuff, whatever.
Sure.
But it's never really gotten to the point where it's like, this you know, this could be something that'll really hurt the brand because it's hurting them in their pockets too.
Can we talk a little bit about your brotherhood with Tone Loc, man? Growing up, that was one of my favorites. Yes. Growing up. So can you talk, because I didn't know the extent of your brotherhood, your friendship, and how long and that has gone. Can you talk a little bit about that in general?
No, Tone is the closest person to me in the music business. I've known him. He was the first artist I think I met when I got to Delicious. Mm-hmm. Then I, you know, obviously wrote for him. I want to say I was signed in August, and he was signed, I want to say March of the previous year in '87. And I watched his ride. So it's like everybody sees me as such a smart guy, and oh, you negotiated the music business so well. I had a year and a half of like deep schooling, watching a man ride a multi-platinum record in the rap space, through the pop space, go on like these big national tours, and I knew I was next in line.
What if you don't mind me asking, what were some of the specific things you were studying that you were like they come to mind?
These are the opportunities. These are the shows that you never thought you'd see a rapper on that are going to call for you. These are the countdowns you're going to be in. These are the people you're going to meet. You know what I mean? Just all of that stuff, and just kind of taking it in, saying this is what's coming. This is what's coming. I wasn't as surprised with a lot of things that happened for me because I was able to watch Tone.
What's funny about that? A year before, because I've worked with TDE artists, I've worked with Kendrick, I've worked with Ab. So a year before Kendrick was on the XXL Freshman, I'll never forget. We were in LA at a spot called Riff LA. It had the clothing brand, shoes and whatnot. And I was just down there because I was doing a lot of work with TDE at the time. I was there with Kendrick and Dave Free, and music is playing in the store. I didn't know who J. Cole was at the time. He's still very early on in his career, and he's like, "Hey, Curtis, you ever heard of J. Cole?" And I'm like, "Nah, not really." He's like, "You need to listen to him." Little did I know, based upon him writing in one of his Heart Part 3 or 4, his series, he talks about going to the XXL and kind of vicariously living through J. Cole and seeing like, oh, that's what's going to happen when I get here. Okay, I need to have this person aligned. This is going to be this. But having that foresight, I wonder how important that is, because you see that even in sports where you'll get kids who play with athletes that are older than them to prepare them for the next school year as they kind of move in there.
That's why the little brothers do better.
That's why the little brothers do better. What do you mean?
If you have an older brother and a younger brother, a lot of times the younger brother will do better because he's always had to compete against the older brother. Not only to watch him, but literally if they go play catch in the yard, the older brother has a couple of years on him, and the younger brother has to compensate.
That's so true. The bar raises too.
Exactly.
Right. Shout out to LaMelo Ball. I just thought about that right now.
Well, yeah. They had a documentary or whatever, and if you watch, LaMelo was the nicest one. They talk about Lonzo. They talk about the middle brother, but LaMelo was doing like, wait till he gets to the league.
Yeah, because he was doing stuff in high school. He telling the kid right here, I'm gonna shoot it and I'm gonna make it by the half court line.
Right.
And he would do it and just be like, it's casual.
Yeah.
But the little brother, because of that education, that's definitely helpful, man. So the next thing I want to start to get into is the conversation around touring, because you made a point that you really wanted to talk about, not just the things that you have accomplished, but the things that you're currently doing right now. And there's a lot of artists that I feel like I speak to who get to a certain age and have never had the success that you've had, but just they've reached a certain age, even of independence, and they feel like, everybody's telling me that this is the end. Everybody's telling me like the shows are slowing down. There's no space here. It's a young man's game. All the usual things that people say. And I feel like you continue to defy those, but not only just defy them in the name of defying them, you're doing them at a high level. Like like I'm hearing Nori talk about like, you're still one of my favorite performers to this day. And there's a lot of steps that I know go into that because I've been touring. I've been on tours, and I'm like, the worst things in life are the only things that are open after 12 a.m.
Right. No, that's right.
When we're leaving the shows and the venues.
Nothing good happens. No, that's right. I get you.
So at this stage, like what's kind of like your first of all, your general mindset to approaching shows at this age now?
Well, I've been on this I Love the 90s tour strong since basically 2016.
2016?
Yeah.
Continuous tour?
Well, other than COVID.
COVID did a number on all of us.
Not to joke about it, but I'm saying other COVID broke it. But in 2016, I say I had about 110 shows on this tour.
110 shows?
Yeah, and like Coolio, God rest him, had like 150. Vanilla Ice was around the 150. Salt and Pepper were around 150. Tone was doing probably at the 130 to 140 range at least. This is Thursday to Sunday every weekend for months. So
you're talking about all over the U.S. or is all over?
All over the U.S. We didn't leave the country. Then we might have done. There was a Canada run. One of the years I did 20 shows in Canada. Mm-hmm. All right, 20 shows in Canada in 20 different cities.
For those that don't understand,
Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
I just want to give context.
Dawson Creek.
Golly.
Penticton, which is a beautiful town to look at. All the minor league hockey arenas we toured. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I say that, you say the approach. I was doing everything I could because I tour by myself. I open. Mm-hmm. I have a player that I can show you that I have all my shows on, and actually we're going to do a little editing a little later. But I would just be a one-man band doing it and making sure I could put on the best performance possible. I have my electrolytes to make sure that I'm good. My rider has stuff that protein bars and low salt almonds and that kind of thing to keep me, to keep me right. That's been the approach so I could get through the shows and make sure that I did the shows as well as possible.
Sure.
Well, from that, if you're talking from 2016 till now, we're talking a good 500 shows, not only on the 90s tour, but NBA halftimes. I've done several NFL halftimes, one by myself, one with Montel Jordan, and another with me, Biz Markie, rest his soul, and Rob Bass. Mm-hmm. And, just a lot of opportunities coming like that. Private shows for big corporations, all those things. But I'm on stage just going. And from doing that, and the same material I've picked up, we talked about our catalogs and how, and how there are songs that weren't big, but we love them for the reasons we do. Right. I would pick the songs that I felt performed the best, that really got, I really got the most out of. From doing all of that stuff, that's what got me back into the studio. That's what. So I'm up there performing for people, and then sing along to Bust a Move. But before, if I have a 15-minute set, I have 10 minutes before Bust a Move. I can pretty much do whatever I want.
Right.
So you take that in the back of your mind and say, okay, I know how to work this crowd. On stage, I have 10 minutes where I could do whatever I want. And I can make my own music. I don't have a record deal. I could just literally make whatever I want. It's like, wait, hold on. I can make whatever I want.
And you say that, and I understand that on an artist level. Excuse me. because there's parts of me that sometimes forgets the freedom that's at hand, especially when you know you have the freedom, you've lived in it. It's easy to get comfortable with it, but you're saying it, you're emphasizing, I can make whatever I want.
Exactly.
And it's at a place where I have the most wisdom and wherewithal around me. Like, I know this game like the back of my hand. You can make better decisions than someone in their 20s trying to come up and learn and execute at the same time.
Regardless of what age you are.
Sure.
If you know you make music and you're capable of making a hit record and you can make whatever you want, then the barrier between you making whatever you want is in you.
Oof. Drop a bomb. Drop a bomb on that one, please. You hit there it is. I don't know why it's so low. It's all good. It's on there. But yes, please repeat that one more time.
Okay. If you know you're good at what you're doing and you can make whatever you want, the barrier between you and making your hit record, between you and making whatever you want, is in you.
Good stuff. Yeah. Exactly.
Especially as an independent artist. It's not a record deal. There's not a what do they call it? A restraining order. I had
I call them Indies, the major indie deals too.
Look, I can't
that's my words.
Without getting any specific, I had a temporary restraining order against me from recording during a lawsuit.
A restraining order from what is that? How does that even? What is that?
I can't talk about specific.
I know, but I'm just like,
how it works is we're disputing whether you have rights, you have your recording rights back, or we have them. Right. So in the meantime, a judge will say, well, don't record anything until we figure out who has your rights. And when you've already had a platinum record and Grammy and multi-platinum and all this other stuff, they'll go for that because you know that me just randomly doing something, I could make somebody else $1 million, and we don't want that to happen.
So not to go into too many details, but does that include things that you record but never release? You can't even don't touch a microphone.
I'm sorry, everything stopped at my brain. Everything stopped in my brain. Jeez. So if I wrote it down, if I recorded on anything, it's
problematic. Wow.
It's in it, yeah. But if it's in, I'm not going to tell you everything that's in my head.
Right.
You could ask me, but I won't remember.
See, this is something I think about, especially at this stage, where I feel like, they always say like 30 is the new 20 or 40 is the new 30.
Right.
I feel like for my age group, there's a lot of artists and peers. I'm 39 who 49's the new 39.
Right.
Meaning that they're now at a place where they're like, I'm not going to be out here rapping. I'm not going to be out here. People say there's no money in music. Whatever excuse that they come up with, I noticed that the biggest differences weren't just what we were doing musically, but it is a mindset. It is where you place your focus, where your heart is at, where your passion is at. And I wonder, in just thoughts that you've had to yourself, what do you think was the difference between you and your peers who are no longer out here that could be out here doing this? What do you think is
rather than going into peers? I just it's a mindset you have.
Yeah.
Okay. If you say, all right, I have 20 releases, and 19 would be considered mediocre or failures, and one would be considered a success. Mm-hmm. You can either say success is your norm and failure is the anomaly, or that failure is your norm and success is your anomaly. For me, even if I have one hit out of 20, that success is my norm. I'm just going through a lot of anomalies till I get to it.
Oh, I love that.
That's it.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So peers or not, if you know that success is your norm and you can do whatever you want, what's stopping you?
Yeah.
I'm 57.
Right.
You talk about being old at 39. I call you nephew, straight up.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Keep calling me nephew. It gives me energy when you say that.
You can do whatever you want, man.
Right.
I just say it over and over again, but
sure.
that resonates. If you can do whatever you want and you're still not motivated, then you're just not meant to do it.
Yeah. For me, it's never a lack of motivation. Like I give that to my pops. My pops was always somebody that, even when I didn't feel like it was not something I could say out loud.
Right.
Right. That was not allowed. It was a matter of, it is your mindset. His favorite thing to tell me when he was taking me to school in the morning, I'm still in like elementary. What is the difference between a leader and a follower? I say, a leader knows what to do. A follower has to be told what to do. Say it with some conviction. I'll say it with some conviction.
Say it with your chest.
Say it with your chest. Exactly. But I appreciate that so much because I saw him be a workaholic, and that, he started off having a photo lab in Compton. He started having a photo what is it, insurance adjusting, where they would kind of take photos of an accident and, you know, quote insurances and all of that. I saw him own his own businesses, right? I saw my mom's, you know, kind of being independent freelancer, but playing the keys. My mom's played the keys for over 40 something years in every LA church I can think of, right? Mm-hmm. And so I saw that as my example. And I know coming into this space now, I am a workaholic and I do a lot of things. My thing is never drive. It's just like my body saying, hey, dude, relax. You can't do everything by yourself. I know I'm a DIYer and all that good stuff, but it's my body telling me what I can't do. I was talking to my guy, Nishan. Thank you, Nishan, for helping out today. And he was like, you know how to sleep, but you don't know how to rest, Curtis.
Right. That's fair. And
that's something that really resonated with me. So as I'm hearing you describe this, I'm seeing, you know, so much of the work that I'm doing is presenting quality results today. But what does that look like 10 years from now if I don't take care of myself in the process?
Well, then we can get back and get into the health and
please,
and all of that. I mean, just because you have a hit record doesn't mean that, you know, you're not capable of having a heart condition or capable of having high blood pressure or capable of having diabetes. Or, I mean, especially as you age in a young man's game, you're trying to look younger, you do unhealthy things to look younger or seem younger. And then you know, you're busy or you don't want to deal with it, so you don't go to the doctor, and all of a sudden it sneaks up on you. So you don't want to be in those shoes. And a lot of times, not only your physical health, but your dental health.
You're
know
the
what I mean?
Second person that said that,
dude.
Yeah,
it's serious. You the dental checkups, making sure that you know the cavities or infections or root canals or whatever. If you have stuff going on in your mouth, that goes directly to your heart, and it affects everything. It affects how and what you eat and all that other stuff. A lot of digestion is making sure you chew your food long enough. Well, if your teeth hurt and you're chewing less and just swallowing, that's going to mess with your digestion. It's going to mess with other parts of your health overall.
Things that we're not told. It's things that were not the popular conversations to have, especially in hip hop. But I feel like, especially with, and I don't even want to just make it just about the recent passings of so many legends in this game, but just a continuous kind of flow of things where you're thinking about, like, I think about Fat Man Scoop, and, you know, I hate that his last moments were captured on camera and, you know, broadcast over the internet, but he's on stage and, you know, you could tell like he's kind of in a shortness of breath. I'm watching other veterans out here who are out here not because they're just out here, you know, just trying to have fun. There's bills to be paid, and perhaps because of certain situations, it's a necessity for them to be out here. And the road is as good to you as you're as good to yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll agree with that.
So I see my peers and I'm like looking and I'm like, and this is not being judgmental. I say it out of concern because these are my real brothers when I see them out here, you know, smoking the time away and kind of like taking whatever's on that rider. Because them riders, I didn't know I could request alkaline water until I requested alkaline water.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute, y'all had this the whole time, but we sitting here looking at, you know, Hennessy and whatever else you got in here. But you said something earlier about a request that you have on your rider. I know this is kind of a random question, but sorry. Would you mind sharing that? Because I think that's something that I didn't even think out. Beyond the hygiene, which is something that's easy to look over if you're not serious about it. You said something about leaving the stage and kind of being drenched in sweat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not something that I see artists do as much.
Sure.
But crews, especially on some CREW, crews that are part of big country tours, they'll have T-shirts, underwear, socks on the rider, knowing that their hard work is going to make them sweat them out. So instead of trying to find laundry every place, they'll either throw them out or whatever, but they make sure they get clean, fresh ones from that one tour stop. My personal rider, just traveling myself, I take the things with me on the road. I request on my rider the things I would take with me on the road. That's the best way to say it. So without saying any brands, electrolyte powders, electrolyte tablets, spring water, gluten-free pretzels when I was doing that, low-salt almonds.
Right.
You know, those things protein bars. Those things are like, okay, if I can't get the meal or if I need just a little something, I can take that have that before the show and I'll be good. And hey, if they give me a bunch of them, I can bring them home and that'll cut down my shopping list.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
And here's the thing. Alcohol in this country, if you talk to a Canadian or some people, people in other countries, alcohol is the cheapest thing. They can't believe how cheap alcohol is. If you continually are just putting alcohol on your rider,
right,
it accomplishes a couple things. Number one, the promoter's going to think he's going to be dealing with a drunk at some point. That's number one. Number two, if you equate every time you get on stage with either being high or being drunk, that's going to affect your performance and how you approach your performance.
So true.
So if you if you have to be just blind drunk to perform, that may be an issue if you have to do 50, 100 shows in a year.
Yeah, and that's something with me. Like that's why I respect you speaking about these things as a rapper, as an MC, as an artist. You speaking about these things so publicly because I would be looked at as a square in a lot of these circles because I'm not drinking.
I'm looked at as a square in my circle. I don't care.
Well, no, I'm learning to walk in confidence in that because at one point it was not a matter of peer pressure, but a matter of is this hurting my ability to network and to break bread?
Right.
Because this is the way that this is what they value and this is how they break bread. I'm not going to smoke with you because I'm an overthinker and I don't need to have that kind of pressure on myself driving home. But I do understand that's the way that you guys have community in this situation. Okay, well, I still can get on this energy frequency without having to do with having a smoke or having a drink. But even something else, I didn't recognize it until you said it. I think it was a Drink Champs interview where they're talking about all throughout Rakim's career, he didn't really curse in his records.
Right.
And I didn't recognize with you until I listened to it, and I'm like, what you said that you thought with Rakim, you barely noticed it. It was the same thing with you. I barely noticed that you weren't cursing in the records because it didn't sound like
I was forcing myself not to curse.
Like you're walking around it.
I felt like that about DOC. They had to tell me that DOC didn't curse in the record. I'm like, really? And
wait, DOC neither?
Did not. DOC did not curse in his records, and
that messed me up. I'm gonna have to go back and listen again.
I'm gonna have to because I was told that, and I can't remember that, and I can't remember seeing a clean because I'm thinking back as a DJ. Right. I can't remember seeing a clean version of his record.
There's no need.
Right.
Was that a conscious decision of yours in the beginning?
Absolutely, and it comes directly from this.
Okay.
I come from a time when we were dying to get on the radio. Literally, I started rapping in 77. I started, 12, so 10, 11, so 77, 78. Rapper's Delight came out in 1980. So all the stuff that guys were rapping over, the breakbeats, all that stuff, I was doing it, and I wanted to be able to be on the radio. So you never knew which one was going to hit because, everybody just didn't know. You had clever lines and everything. So let me not curse in anything to not give them an excuse. Right. To not put me in. Then it went on. My first record hits, and I'm getting all kind of fan mail. Oh, my parents were actually letting me listen to your record. They wouldn't let me listen to rap, but they let me listen to you. I was able to get into rap because you didn't curse.
Right.
So I'm thinking, well, why would I start cursing on my second album, on my third album, and then on my fifth album, and on my seventh album?
Yeah.
Let me use my vocabulary, because if I can get away with materialistic and opportunistic
right.
on a Grammy-winning record,
sure,
then why am I going to limit my vocabulary and the rest of it?
So, and I'm to play devil's advocate because I'm with you. Right. I feel like because I spent so much of my career not cursing, when I did, the emphasis was different,
right,
than somebody who kind of deadens the word and deadens even your interaction with it.
A lot more harder ERs come out.
Yeah, it's more to the point where it's like, oh, you were angry on this record.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're having the right kind of conversation about, I just like this beat. Oh, you sounded cool on this one. This one is like, what was making you so angry on this one? What was making you so emotional? And so I like to utilize it in a more strategic way instead of using it as I'm trying to think of how I compared it. It's like seasoning for some folks.
Right.
They just put the words on. It's like, this is missing a little authenticity. Here, let's season that.
Yeah.
But it's like there's so many ways to go about it, and I kind of attribute that to my pops. Early in my first records, I was just mimicking. My first time rapping, I was mimicking my favorite rappers, and all of them were cursing. But it wasn't until he was like, I challenge you as a hip hop head, as somebody who, one of his favorite rappers was Kool Moe Dee. He's like, I challenge you to show me if you could do this as a poet, as a writer, without doing it. And I think I took that challenge on for the next 20 odd years.
Well, to me, it's a great challenge because you get to use different words and you get to expand your vocabulary. And I've told you, just from the stuff that I've heard, the commercials you played during your pods.
Sure.
If I hear 16 bars from you, I'm gonna hear a couple things that I'm not expecting. I'm going to hear a left turn. I'm going to hear, whether it be something about your son or something about your family or something about your approach to life. Right. You're going to make a left turn and not go for the easy rhyme or whatever. That's what I got into in terms of just the stuff I heard just in your commercials. I'm not going to front and be like, oh, I got your whole catalog. No, but you give me 16 bars and I can tell you who you are.
Yeah. I love it.
Because I've been doing it that long.
And I came up on individuals like yourself, legends like yourself, who also cared. And I don't care if it's a record that is for the radio. There's still, I can tell MC to MC, even in this environment, you still care about the nuance. You still care about, you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I've talked about this before, but just like 2008, I had been rapping for essentially 30 years, and I'd never used a rhyming dictionary. I had one. I might look at a word here or there, but I'm like, oh man, I'm a purist. I can't really do it. You know what I mean? And then I made my Adrenaline Flow record, and I got into the four bar couplet, and I just never left it. Just never left it. So that verse I did on Drink Champs, I'm like, this is the best verse I ever did. Yeah. It was just like I fell into the multi-syllable couplet thing where, because the rhyming dictionary, I look at it, I'm not looking at words that are not in my vocabulary.
Yeah, if I can understand, that's what I understand the purest conversation, but a part of me had to make some kind of, I don't want to railroad your point, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, but these are words that I know. I just can't recall them in the moment.
Exactly. They're not in my brain at the moment. Yeah. And a lot of times I'll see a word that I know. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. That brings a line. That's a wellspring for 3 more lines.
Right.
So,
because you could give the same rhyming dictionary to someone else.
Right.
And see a completely different type of verse and result from it.
Right.
And I think, I think I have that same kind of relationship with AI. In that I look at AI as an assistant and never a replacement.
Right.
And I can tell when I listen to artists, even when I look at certain captions on the internet, on like social media websites, I'm like, you're about 5% of this conversation, and AI or ChatGPT is 95. And you can tell when it happens creatively, where if you don't put any input into it, those who are creatives are going to know. For instance, I had the album cover that I did for this project, Beige. I took a photo, or a friend of mine took a photo at a show, and I had my elbow at a very awkward place. I took that photo, made a silhouette, used Photoshop to basically circle around my arm and make it look a little bit more normal. And I'm like, AI didn't have to tell me to do that.
Right.
But now that I see it, I can use my better judgment, my experience, to now make a experienced decision in this. So how have you kind of been utilizing AI? Because I know you were talking about that as well.
Well, first thing now, the difference between making a record in 1987 and 2024 is that as an artist, half of your job is being somewhat of an online influencer. That people have to look at what they see online and what's in the snippets and the TikTok videos and the YouTube and that kind of stuff, as opposed to once again, like as we were discussing, because they won't get to the third verse. Bust the Move has 4 verses. Like
four verses, yes it does.
You never would have heard, Your Best Friend Harry if it was made today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You wouldn't hear.
We need all those verses.
In the City. Ladies, you wouldn't.
We need all of them.
But that's what I'm saying. 4 verses, 4 16-bar verses, 4 8-bar hooks, I think 12-bar intro, double hook outro, 4 minutes and 20 seconds. The single that I put out that I'm getting chart action on, called Fun Part Now, is 2 minutes and 41 seconds.
How do you feel about that, by the way? Like I know we're getting ready to get to the AI conversation, but how do you feel about? Because it's not like you've rebelled against it. You're playing
the AI plays a role in that. The online influencer part is somewhat, commandeered by my AI character, AI mascot, Disco Teresa. So we literally made a character, and I have her voice in the records, but also in the video. And videos going forward, I have that, and also I was doing promos. I think I sent you all the stuff.
Yeah, you did.
All the promos and thanks to radio and things like that come from her voice. So instead of me shooting videos, we do an AI generation, and we send that out. But it's still a representation of me and a representation of the label.
Right.
But it's a modern thing, so that a young kid that may be intrigued by AI or be intrigued by an AI character won't be taken aback by it so much. We get into that character and then get into the music that was with me and with the character.
It's funny when you said that right now. I made the connection between how you would have an athlete like Kobe, rest in peace, where he would, sign off his likeness. I never forget, I went to a health food restaurant by my grandmother's house in San Diego years and years ago, and he was on the front of a company called Nutella that was just coming around with no number, just a number on the jersey, no logo or nothing.
Well, that's the European back, because that's
okay.
That's from overseas. So that's where that came from.
I'm making the connection that in a lot of ways you now are able to extend your brand and kind of give it omnipresence in places that you don't physically have to be. So it gives you more time to focus on the things that you enjoy the most in this.
Yeah. And even though we are a multicultural society and the like, how can I put this? There were times when I would do partnerships and sponsorships and the like, where my face would go national, or I would be in a commercial or something like that, and there would be certain areas that they would barely play it,
right?
And you get the comment back, oh, there are too many black faces on the screen. You see what I'm saying?
The comment from where?
From just
consumers, or
not consumers, not consumers.
Okay.
But you say, okay, why isn't it as popular in this region? And that would be something that would be said. Now, I'm not thinking that would be something that would go on in 2024.
Yeah.
But if I just have a happy AI, character representing me, then that's not something I have to deal with, and I don't have the patience.
It's
at
this age. And I feel it feels like the companies don't either, because like that they're fully embracing.
Oh yeah, no.
What they can do with this thing.
Well, the interesting thing is that a lot of those young kids that would play the hardcore, they play the NWA record when their parents weren't listening, or when their parents weren't home, they now have jobs and they have influence in corporate America. Right. You know what I'm saying? I saw that Snoop's doing the voice. I'm like, the world has changed.
The world, but but even Snoop's brand has changed too. In that,
most definitely
international.
But that's the thing. All those people that say that Snoop was too edgy have been phased out by the people that were fans of Snoop coming up, and you know what I mean? So a fan of Snoop is going to be 45 right. with Sway, and it's like, I want to put him in this. I want to put this. And I look at that and I'm like, man.
Insane.
That's what me at this age, I'm like, oh, I can do this. So I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but the whole idea of everybody getting so musical and melodic and rap stuff, I'm kind of shying away from that a little bit. I've been encouraged to do, get some melodic hooks and all that. It's like, no, I'm a rapper. So I'm going to do the best that I can with my rap stuff, because it's been so accepted and so ingrained into the culture that I think I'm so good at it that my cadence can affect you the same way melody does.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm with you on that. Even on the last project that I had, I didn't do the hooks. I allowed the singer to do the hooks, first of all, because he's gonna sing a lot better than me. Shout out to my guy Monomari. But I feel like even in this era of more so mainstream rap, there's a lot of music that you saw artists feeling like they had to be, I guess, their own version of what a Drake might have been, where they have to sing the hook. They have to, they have to not even rap anymore. Like it's like rappers who don't want to be rappers anymore. They want to be rock stars. They want to be singers. And I respect that somebody wants to expand creatively, but a part of me is like, but we're rappers, and we have not, as many great artists and rappers we've seen, we still haven't reached the ceiling of what this could be. Especially with the technology now.
Well, that and also I hang around a lot of singers. I have good friend Will Wheaton that we wrote the Anastasia song together. So I have a real sense of what good tuning is. But they he would tell me, and other singers would tell me about my cadence, that they liked singing the stuff that I did because I was a slave to cadence as much as I was a slave to tuning. So I got to the point where it's like, okay, if I really am going to, do this, and I'm going to use 37, if not really, if you talk about when I started rhyming, 45 plus years of being on a microphone, and I'm going to put that into what I'm doing lyrically, I should be able to make a cadence that makes people have the same kind of reaction as hearing a melody repeated.
And I feel like you've done that well. The record that you sent me, that was the first thing I paid attention to.
Loose, Loose, and then Fun Part. But
the Fun Part is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Fun. Yeah,
and it's only because at this stage now, I'm realizing that there's kids. It's funny. I'm saying kids. They're coming to me and they're like, "Oh, I love what you're doing. It's real old school." And I'm like, You talking to me?
Yeah, it's English.
Because we're using the same word, but I understand what they're picking up on is nowhere as detailed as what we as writers are picking on. They're picking on just the very zoomed out point of view of it's your tone. It's where you're putting your inflections at. Or the more conversational piece. So I'm paying attention to that more so. And also, too, because there's so many artists out here now that I feel like are actively, you are one of them, they're actively extending the expectation of how a rapper sounds at this age. I listen to LL and I love what I'm hearing from LL.
Yeah, absolutely.
I listen to Common and Pete Rock, and I'm like, when I listen to all of them, the first thing that I notice and the biggest difference is where those inflections are being stressed at.
Can I spit a verse for you?
Please do. Spit a verse? Yeah.
Okay.
Can you spit a verse for it? What?
Okay. So this is a good example. And once again, this record Nocturnal is the best one I've ever written. The third verse is what I did on Drink Champs, but the first verse, first and second really, but I did the whole thing in terms of the inflections and the cadence and the rhyme scheme almost being melodic. So after dark. Baby, when the sun go down, a different kind of people get to run your town. Sitting at the bar getting one more round and you can't go home, so where you gonna go now? Out, stepping into the pitch black. You miss the daytime and you can't switch back. Cause fools out here, they put you in a ditch, Jack, and the things they break, it's hard to fix that. Nocturnal, the time between dusk and dawn. If you had a full day, night is just as long. Where the scandalous thrive and the trust is gone. Cause some fools bust, but others get busted on. Trust the song, you knowing that the lust is wrong. But you think about the lady who'll adjust the thong. It must belong up inside the pages of your journal. This is the time we calls the nocturnal.
Hit that round of applause, please. Hit that round of applause. Come on now. Like I'm telling you.
But the thing is,
come on.
Hitting those rhyme schemes in exactly the same time should give you the same feeling as hearing a melody repeated. Well, that's how I approach it.
And also too, your breath control is something I'm looking at, and I'm like, I don't mean to rag on any of my peers at all when I say this, but it's some younger artists that I'm like, maybe if you stop smoking them Newports, you could do your records live the way you do them in the studio.
Yeah, and also part of it, even singers will tell you, take a deep breath and look up. Take a deep breath and don't look down. You're not going to get the note out. But rap is the same way. You got to make sure you give your throat room, give your chest room, and have enough breath inside of you so you can get the words out.
You're making me feel a whole lot better for taking voice classes. I was the only rapper in that room, and a funny story. I was also one of the only black students in that room, and that teacher was like, you can sing Frank Sinatra. You can sing this. You're going to sing Birds in the Sky. Yeah. You know how I feel. It's just so much soulful when you sing it. I'm like, I know why the hell you telling me to do that, first of all. Can we talk about the topic? We kind of touched on it, but I want to go into more detail because this is a topic that I'm passionate about because I feel like, let me give you, first of all, let me paint this picture. I had a vision. Maybe it was a dream, maybe it was a vision. I can't remember what it was, but it was a year ago. And I had this vision come to mind of imagine hip hop 100 years from now, and let's say 200, and people are looking at this time period and they're asking the question, why is it that specifically black men and black women in this culture got to the most wisest part of their lives, right? Where they know what the industry is, they know what life even, to that degree is. We stopped hearing music by them. And instead we heard podcasts for some folks. And that's not any disrespect to anybody, but just we didn't see them in a space where they made so much of their impact. And if you listen to a lot of them speak about it, they'll say, I just don't know if I have a place out here. And I think about it and I had that vision. I said, it would be unfortunate if the only wisdom they could pull from this time was from folks whose brains weren't even developed before 25. And so that led me to understanding or remembering the importance of being out here and using my God-given gift, which is why I say you inspire me so much by hearing like not just you touring, but like you actively figuring out this space and saying, no, there's going to be a career in 10 years after this based upon the way that I'm pacing this. That makes me look at it and say, I've been doing this thing all wrong because I want to do that up, beyond that age as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, Curtis, The one jewel I could give you is that you have a catalog of music that you can look back on and say, if you can honestly say in your heart, at the time that I made these, this was the best that I could do, and you continue on that playing, then it's always going to be a positive space. And your catalog as a whole is going to have value, whether it doesn't necessarily have to be to 35 years. It could easily be licensing. It could be a video game. It could be, with all the opportunities online with streaming or whatever, those little pennies and fractions of pennies add up if you get partnerships and you get into deals like that. Right. So if you're making the best music you can, those opportunities will most likely come to you because you're not half-assing it. You're not saying, let me just get this done so I could just say I have another record. I hadn't recorded anything new for 10 years, 11 years. Yeah. But I was touring a lot and I felt I had said everything I needed to say, but it's doing all the touring that made me feel like, okay, if I had this kind of track on stage, what I could do with it as a performer, and then literally, scale that back and put that in the studio, that made the studio process a lot better.
And please excuse me if I'm asking, this is personal, but did you ever have a conversation after 10 years when you eventually did get back in the studio of, was there any doubt in the process at all? Or was it a matter of like, no, I know once I get this process going, it'll get to where I envision it being at? Because 10 years is a long time to...
It is a long time, but here's the thing. If we go back to the earlier point of the one of 20 and the one is the success is your norm and the 19 failures are your anomaly, then regardless, I'm not judging the success of the record based on whether it does well or doesn't do well.
Right.
Is it the best record that I can make right now? Because back to another point, I can do whatever I want. So is whatever I want the best that I can do right now? And if you feel that in your heart making the music, it almost doesn't matter how it sells, when it sells, it will do the best that it can do because it's the best that you can do at the time. Right. It was just the only doubt I had was during the 10 years.
Right.
Once I got
that doubt accumulates when you're away from the studio because when I'm making content, there's an itchy part of me that's like Curtis King the rapper that's like, yeah, you're killing it with the views, but when are we going to sit down and write a verse?
But here's the thing. You get judged on your verses and your albums a lot harsher than a bad podcast episode. You see what I'm saying? A bad podcast episode can come and go until the next one comes out.
Nobody forget about it.
If you're like, I'll put out a record, I'll put out another one next week. Well, if you're making them in a week, and then how are people really going to regard them? That's right. I know people talk about trying to flood the market with content, but if every record is the best one you could do, I could see that. Like if you make the best ones you could do and then start the process. But if you're doing an ongoing week and saying, okay, this week I'm going to make the best I can do, at some point you're going to fall short.
But see
that gets judged different.
It does
than the podcast space.
It gets judged different by them. For me though, when I'm sitting here, like I do believe in that old saying of how you do one thing is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
I hold that to where when I sit here in front of the camera, even if I'm not having the experience of a seasoned videographer, I'm still looking at all these details and saying, so for the next one, I got to make sure that I do better on this. And these things matter to me in every aspect. I sit down and produce a beat. I am sitting in here and I'm asking the questions of what my favorite producer would do in this moment. When I'm rapping, I'm not saying to myself, I can always rest on the fact that I do content. It's like, no, I want to be the best MC that I can be in a situation. And it's a double-edged sword in that it does produce some really great results. However, it does put an unnecessary amount of pressure on everything. And everything doesn't need that kind of pressure to succeed. Especially when you're overshooting the target, right?
Right. No, that's right. You're right. I put pressure on myself when I make my music,
right?
But I know it's going to come out in a beautiful place.
Sure.
So it's just me fighting against myself. But if I give myself every opportunity to do it, I'm in a positive headspace and don't have a lot of other stuff going on. And with my 4-line couplet thing, I try not to write down 1 or 2 lines.
Right.
I write down, I'll have 4, I'll write down 4, and then when I get the next 4 in my mind, I'll go behind it. Or if I write down a couple, I'll say insert line here. So I know the one that I'm missing is line 2. So I'm trying to fill that in because
it's a very strategic way to go about it.
Because line 2 is going to have a certain cadence, and I got to have it lead in the line 3, or even if there's a transition, give the space for the transition.
Right.
Like being that that technical about it, even though it's going to go by people in a couple of seconds.
Right.
When you get up on that stage and you know that you're just repeating that process, it makes your performance more, more believable and also more emphatic coming from you.
How do you measure when you're getting on stage and you've left the stage and you said, that was a great show? Because a lot of folks will probably say they judge it by the crowd reaction. You seem to like, there's a lot more that goes into that algorithm.
There is, because you could, there's certain crowds that oh boy.
Uh-oh, did I ask
no,
one?
no. I mean, there's certain crowds that'll love you even if you're doing a what you consider a poor performance. So like it depends on your levels and all that. But it's like the thing I talked to you about, the third verses. If you're an artist and you have a song that people don't know and you're 2 verses in and they haven't gotten it by then, a third verse ain't gonna help. But it'd be better to jump to something else. You know what I'm saying?
But I've seen this in real time where artists is like, he's like, they're not feeling it. But Curtis, wait till I get to this third verse. I'm really killing it. I'm like, no, they've already checked out, man. You got to let this go.
Right. And once again, you have that mindset. It's like, hold on. You must have felt the first verse was good enough to start your second one.
Yeah.
Even in writing it.
Like,
oh, the first one's done. It's good. Let me go to the second one. Oh, the second one's done. It's good. Let me go right to the third one. Well, if you've done the first 2 that you thought were good and they're not feeling it, that third one, built on the foundation of the first 2, may not be your best choice at the point.
I know I burnt the cake, but when I put the icing on it,
right,
that should fix everything,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
That's what that.
I'll scrape off the crust.
A little burnt piece ain't nothing. For the most part, it's not.
Yeah. But yes, a good performance. I know in my heart that I've had a good performance, but I also know when I'm kind of going through the motions as well, and I try not to have the going through the motions kind of show because here's the thing. One time I went to traffic school and the guy said the best way to drive is to always look for cops. Right?
What is that?
It means that you're less likely to get a ticket if you have your eyes open for cops.
Okay.
So the best way to perform is to put yourself in the place of someone paying money to see you.
Ooh, please hit the bomb on
So
that one. Please.
it's like,
I did not know what I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't know where it's going, but that right there, where that landed.
If someone is taking $20 out of their, or $50 or whatever it is,
sure,
even if you're doing it for free and you're getting money off the bar,
right,
they're coming out of their house to see you in this, land of online stuff and virtual this and that and the other.
They didn't have to, by the way.
Didn't have to.
Right.
Taking their time, taking their money to come out and see you. How much of your effort is that worth to you?
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like you have to. I put myself in the place of someone. I don't care how many records I've sold or whatever. That person tonight has come to see me. What am I going to give them? And if I don't give them the best of me, you know what I mean? And everybody's taping everything. So the half-assed me is going to be on somebody's feed.
Yeah.
In a reel.
And that's the worst commercial for the next show.
Such and such looks like they don't care. They came to my town, and because I'm in a flyover state, they don't care about me. They don't care. Come on, man.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So in making that effort to make sure the performances are good, then I'm going into the studios and say, okay, if I make the records a certain way, it'll take less effort for me to make it good for the audience.
Because you're not trying to work a studio record into a performance record. You've already connected the two parts.
I know what the performance record sounds like, so I write the performance record in the studio. Interesting. That's what Fun Part is. I did Fun Part last night, and I had people coming up to me saying, they hadn't heard that's it. I was the first one to kick off the show, and it was literally me, Tone Loc, Freedom Williams, CNC Music Factory, Montel Jordan, and Rob Bass.
Wow.
And the guys that put it together came up to me and said, Fun Part was that was the first record I did off my set, and that'll probably be the first record I do in the set tomorrow at Grand Park. Right. But they said Fun Part was such a great way to kick off the show. Such a really good record, and I can't wait to hear it more and that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, that's by design, dude. Like that record performs as well or better than Bust a Move. I may have done Bust a Move 1,000 times, but Fun Part has the advantage of being built on a foundation of this is going to be good on stage for the crowd. You mind if I ask this specifically about that? Because I think that's going to help so many artists out here who are. I do a critique series on Mondays where I just listen to music and I kind of give my first impressions about the production, the mix, the vocals, the tonality, the writing, all these things.
And what I notice is that a lot of artists are kind of making music in a very small circle, in very small vision, right? They'll make the song and it's like, yeah, that made you and your buddy who was engineering it chuckle. But when it comes to a live setting, you've done too many things that there's so many elements you can't control. First of all, I know that when I do public speaking, no matter how many times I've done it, I still get a nerve where my breathing changes because I get this weird back pain. Only exists when I start to go public speak. Right before I go on, as soon as I start speaking, it disappears. If I don't prepare for that, I can easily get up there, remember everything, but have a shortness of breath and a flow that doesn't make any sense. So I train for that. But I see artists who are making songs and I'm just like, you don't have the breath control to do that live.
Right.
I'll ask you this because you know you're known for doing like not only the party raps but also the speed raps. How do you as an MC, when you're sitting here making this song, is there still that part of you that's like, I can bar up. I can bar up on you right now, but I'm making a performance song. How are you like, I mean, let me better phrase the question. Are you, like, what kind of things are you doing specifically to ensure that this is a performance-friendly song?
Giving the verses space to breathe. So saying a line and giving the audience a chance to hear it without jumping on it with the next line. Not doing so many 30-second notes, because if you're in an arena and it's bouncing off the walls, you start doing a whole bunch of 30-second notes, it's going to be all over, and they won't understand it. So if you do, it's not about rapid fire like automatic machine gun. Right. It's like little like you can do your 16ths and then a burst, and then people can understand that burst, but then you're back to stuff that is more straightforward. So a lot of times it's not about you rapping as fast as you can all the time. It's rapping as fast as you can in a little bit of time, but then balancing that with some regular rhymes that are clever. You know what I mean? And when it comes the time to do a triple or do something, acrobatic or whatever, you just have that one moment that you can brace them for, prepare for, dismount, come out of, and go on to the next, as opposed to doing a whole bunch of gymnastics. There's only a few rappers that can even do that, but in a live setting, I've found that if you're echoing off the walls and people are talking and yelling, whatever,
especially when you have an earpiece and all these different things. And shout out to Tech Nine. One year I went to just go to pay dues, and I saw Tech Nine for the first time, and just one of the most incredible breath control and shows I saw. And then it translated well to where, I'm sure you've seen this, where you see an artist live and it's amazing. The energy is everybody's going crazy. Then you listen to the record and it's like, how long ago was this recorded? And it doesn't marry the two. Tech Nine was one of those where I heard him live and his breath control. He's doing he's just rapping it. And then you go back and listen to the record. It's that same energy. It's just in a studio setting. Right. So I like that idea, what you're saying of translating the performance within the recording. That's amazing.
And by the way, that comes from the fact that I've been on stage so much.
Sure.
So to give you insight, when I first signed my record deal, I'm like, okay, the majority of my money is going to come from my record deal, even though it didn't. But I'm saying the majority of money is going to come from my record deal, and then I'm going to get money from stage, and I'll do other stuff with that, and then publishing will be what it's going to be. Then it got to the point where, okay, there's a lot going on with publishing. Records are getting played a lot. I'm able to get licenses here and there, whatever. So I'll make that the backbone of what I'm getting, and then the stage stuff will be, ancillary, whatever happens. And now the stage stuff became the backbone, because the 16 to 20-year-olds that were listening to Bustin' are now in their 40s and and being able to spend money on stuff. They're the money spending demographic. So me being on stage a lot and in front of the people, and they're enthusiastic about it, I'm like, okay, if I go back in the studio with that in the back of my mind, then I can make some stuff happen.
That's the part that I don't really understand, especially when we have these conversations about age in hip hop, and we talk about age in those who are the buying audience. What I've noticed from my POV is that the hyper consuming audience, at least online and social media, is the younger demographic. But those who are still making the buying decisions in the household are the parents, are the uncles, are the grandparents. And that still holds value. It's just that And I learned this through content. Whenever I do anything that says like major labels have deprioritized signing artists, rappers over, they deprioritize them in place of Afrobeat artists and Latin artists was a story that I did, right? And that story went crazy, but never have I seen so many of my elders in the comments like, good, because the music has forgot about me and I forgot about the music. And I see all these things and I'm like, there's a demographic out there that wants something that doesn't, they want music that doesn't feel as toxic, as vulgar. They want music that does feel like home. It feels warm and they're ready to pay for it. But there are folks who are simply either choosing not to provide it or they don't have the visibility to be in front of them. So I asked that to say that, maybe more of a topic, a conversation piece in that, you know, the money is there. It's just that they're choosing to put it in places that make sense for where they're at in that part of life, right?
Yeah, well, that's true. And also when you say hyper consuming
right,
or younger people, you're not really talking about the money they spend. You're talking about like the number of streams or
their
the
behavior,
number of,
right.
So they may spend a lot of time at it, but in terms of what it, you know, compensates the artist it's not as lucrative as what the older people would do if they were, you know, investing in an artist.
Sure.
So it's really apples and oranges. You know, it's like, do I really want to get to 1 billion streams, or would I rather put that effort into something else that's going to make me some super fans, or make my show better, that I can go do more live performances and get money. You know, the numbers are all over the place, but I would have to get probably 3 to 7 million streams, depending on the streaming service, to make what I make one night on a stage. So,
this is the constant back and forth that I have with the idea of streaming, because here's where I've landed with streaming. After doing all the content that I did, after removing my music and then bringing this last project there, which I have my own thoughts about, I'll share those later on in another episode, but I've kind of I've come to the conclusion that streaming is another social media platform.
Well, we went through this on MEC, and they had a discussion about whether selling music was a loss leader or whether it was an asset.
Right.
And when I came on, one of the first things I said is it was both. In the short term, it is a lost leader. You make the music to get people to go to a platform to do something else, or to come to a show or whatever. But in the long term, that music becomes an asset, because you get licenses, because you get placements, because in my case, you go 35 years reversion, and all of a sudden that copyright is, part of that comes back to you, and then going forward. And just to complete that point, the whole point of the reversion is that what you do, the rights that now come back to you, you're essentially selling back to the company that's been doing the marketing the whole time. So not only you get compensated for the time in the past, but what you get from future sales is more than you had seen before.
Wow.
That's really now it's nowhere near those crazy numbers, with selling catalogs, but it's definitely something like a lot of what I'm funding, what I'm doing, is coming from what I got from my reversion. So yeah.
And I wish so much more of that information was out there, because there are a lot of artists that I see today who are signing deals, and I'm like, family, we've seen so many people who have told you, this is my perspective as an independent artist. I'm not trying to impose it on nobody else. But I always viewed it like, when you talk about these predatory deals, the ones that are meant to be like, loan shark deals, I look at it and I say, it feels like a haunted house that you hear people from the windows screaming out, hey, they did this and they did this and they did this in this documentary, and they talk about this. And it's a long line that there's so many artists that are still trying to go in, even though they look at the other side and the exit. And there's people who come out as a shell of themselves and they still want to go in this place.
That sounds like the presidency, by the way, but go on.
No, low-key it does. But I look at that and I'm like, we've seen too many examples of folks who have come in here in very desperate and dire environments and situations and ended up regretting the decisions they made during that time. Why do people still want to be signed today?
Okay. The thing is that you need to put yourself in a situation where you're not desperate going in, so that when they give you the desperation deal, you say no, or you get enough funding where you can do some of it on your own, or you can just do a distribution or something like that, and you're not signing all your stuff away. Yeah. You don't have to have a record deal to get yourself good credit. You don't have to have a record deal to You don't have to have a record deal to go to each one of the hotel chains and sign up for their frequent stay program so that when you go on the road, you can get those points back. Yeah. You don't have to have a record deal to go to the airlines and sign up for the frequent flyer programs and all those other things that normal business people do. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to take all of those things and benefit from them, but you don't start being a grown-up when you get your deal. Be a grown-up going into the deal. Don't say that this deal is going to make me my identity. I'm going to, show who I am, and it's going to give me maturity and all.
Come on.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But see, this is why I stress that story that I told you. This is why we need you out here. I say we need you out here because we're learning in real time of things that sound, when you say that, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't I go and invest into this? Especially if I plan on traveling. Especially because I tell you, our first tour, we was so lost. We had too many people on tour with us. First of all, the first stop we went to, we had to sneak people into the hotel, right? And we woke up and we tried to put stuff in the truck really fast. And the owner of the hotel was like, no. And he started taking pictures of us and taking pictures of the license. I'm like, okay, we can't do this. We got to plan this better. But if we would have had a plan going into it, even on our first tour, we could have at least broke even instead of going into the amount of debt that we went into it.
Curtis,
I came out of it, I should say.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, man. Whatever it is in life that you do,
right.
All right? If you scream, you can't scream constantly 24/7. And you can't tell it to scream until you have a quiet part. If you sprint, you can't sprint a marathon. Right. But you can sprint, you can do intervals or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If you're an artist and you're creating stuff, you can't always be making the best creative decisions and coming through all that 24/7, 365. Mm-hmm. But if you say, okay, I'm going to take a break from music and I'm going to go sign up for a hotel frequent stay program. Ooh. It may not be musical, right. But the work I put in now will be something that'll help me down the line.
Yeah.
And it takes you out of like, oh my God, did I put the snare in the right place? Is this verse right or whatever? And this is something that's going to help me down the line. It may seem totally unrelated, but when you're out there, sneaking your ass out of hotels and people taking pictures, you would have wished you did that shit.
But what you're saying, and as a grown man, I was younger then, as a grown man, really about my business, you're just asking us to conduct ourselves like a business.
Yeah.
To be the business we say that we are. Like a lot of folks love the CEO title, but are not willing to make the CEO steps to really have a business that you're operating as you're proud of. Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that stuff is within arm's reach. But I'm glad that you emphasized the necessity sometimes to take a break from the creative so that you can stabilize those things, because I think for certain artists, and even me at certain points, it felt like a death sentence. Like if I don't continue to get better at this is the product, this is everything. And if I do this, like, for instance, when I first started getting into shooting my own content, I found myself going deep in the rabbit hole of videography and all these courses. And I'm like, but you came here to rap. But then another part of my brain is like, no. You came here to rap, and if you care about it that much, you'll surround it with the foundation it needs.
And also, the care that it takes to get good at something else will make you better at rap.
One more time, please. Oh my goodness, yeah. Gems are abundant.
The point that I'm making is that if you're a lyricist and you have a certain approach to it, and you haven't had a hit record, you're putting too much pressure on it. But if you get good at something else that you don't put pressure on, some of the things you learn in becoming, whether you're 10,000 hours, Gladwell thing, right. What you learn in getting good at that other thing will make you better at rap. And another thing for me, I mean, not to toot horns, but it is what it is. I've written multi-platinum records in 3 different decades. I had that by the time I was 40. You know what I mean? And I feel like as a songwriter, I'm as good or better than anybody that does it. Having said that, I will look at a songwriting tutorial podcast. I will look at, people telling me how to do something that I feel like I'm expert at, because one of their little nuggets may be something that I never would have seen.
It'll spark something different in you.
Yeah.
Also because of your experience.
Just from my deep dives on YouTube, I have a different approach to my second verses now.
Ooh, see, but that encourages me so much, because I'm the one, they'd be like, oh, you a weirdo for doing all this extra stuff. Like, bro, just rap. It's not that deep. And it's like, no, when you care, it becomes that deep, because that's the kind of details you're willing to go grab. Because I could read through a whole book, and if I get one gem, that one gem could change the trajectory of the rest of my year.
Let alone the fact that just because it sounds simple doesn't mean it is simple. Okay, so if you have a really full sounding instrument, record, whatever, a lot of times those are comp sounds. A lot of times there's 2-3 things put together, but it comes out as one single sound. So the listener may be hearing one single sound, but the brat breaking work you took to make that one single sound out of 3, 4, 5 different components. That's how you should approach everything. Right. This may be a really simple line or whatever, but stripping it down from the first time I said it is what made it so smooth now. So the listener may not hear the whole stripped down process.
Right.
They hear the completion. It's like, eating a sausage and not knowing how it's made.
Right.
But the thing is the care that goes into making that line, into making that beat, into making that sound. That's where your comfort comes from. So like for me, like sonically, I respect Payne a great deal. Yeah. I sent him Fun Part, and he's like, who engineered this? He just in terms of the sound. Right. Yeah, shout out to Payne on that. But the part of it was that I go to my engineer with such good sounds that he doesn't have to waste time.
Yeah, do too much. My sound selection should take care of some of that.
Not only, not to cut you off, but not only that the sound selection take care of it, but the sound selection allows you to enhance sounds as opposed to make sounds.
Repairing them.
Yeah, exactly. Putting them on the lift and getting underneath and messing with the engine. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. I'm in the process of like fixing that component of my mixing, because I learned mixing and a little bit of mastering later on in my career. I'm at the part now, not to cut you off, and where I'm like, Iman, the guy I keep working with, talking about Iman Amari, he's like, if you choose sounds that cut through the mix, you won't have to do all that time trying to tweak the mix to make them cut through.
Cut through, yeah. Right.
It's like it's literally here for you, plug and play.
Well, here's the jewel I'll give you on that. You have every level of the frequency range in hertz, from the lowest to the highest. If you have 24 tracks, you have that entire range 24 times. So just because it's a kick drum does not mean that there can't be some resonance in a higher frequency range.
Oh, wow.
Just because it's a keyboard or a bass line, just because it's a typical instrument that occurs in a typical range does not necessarily mean you have to stick to that range with that one instrument.
And it's funny because there's an engineer that I highly respect. He was showing me a technique with the use of an 808, and he was like, my muscle my muscle memory is to get rid of the high frequencies in the 808, because I'm like, it hits at a low frequency. And he's like, okay, you saw what you did? You removed the buzz from the 808 now. You removed the part where when somebody's on a cell phone, they can hear it on a cell phone, even though it's not supposed to pick up those low frequencies, they can hear it because of that mid-frequency energy. And you just remove that because someone taught you that that's what you do with basses and 808s, but it's like you have to see it three-dimensional in those.
Well, another thing you can do with 808s, if you're not satisfied with the ring from the 808 being the thing they hear in the phone, is you play a bass line along with the 808 in a higher key. That's it. So the frequency, the phone frequency will come through. The 808 will be in the record, but what you're hearing in the phone is more the higher frequency of the bass, the sine bass you play on top of the 808.
Because you were strategic about what you were adding. And it was intentional. Yeah, I think a lot of folks just throw stuff together and hope it works.
And 808s, yeah, definitely. And 808s, if you sustain them, lose tuning. They're not 808s. If you were to play an 808 and naturally out of the machine, it's going to go boom, a little. So if you put a bass with it that keeps the tune of what you want, then you'll have.
You could support it as it's telling off.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, and these are the things that I'm like, I'm proud of hip hop. Haven't always been proud of some of the conversations we see between the young and the older in the space, but I feel like so much of the gaps are closing right now because there are folks on both sides recognizing, like, I can help cut down 7 years of your young experience by listening to some of the game that I have for you. On the flip side, I've had a lot of OGs that ask me, how does Bandcamp work?
Right.
How do you set this up with your live stream? Mm-hmm. And I'm ready to do that because I'm like, of course I'm going to do that because how much of an impact you had on my career. So, you know, even in this space, I genuinely do appreciate you reaching out to me because at the time I was like, you know, first of all, I'm glad you even knew who the hell I was. But second of all, you prioritizing to come on this podcast, even after a long plane ride, is just something that I'm forever grateful for. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. And then hopefully it'll be the first of many. There'll be other things that we can discuss and you know, I definitely look forward to it.
Yeah, and you messed up telling me that there's a possibility for us to make more content because I'm the content guy. So listen,
I'm not mad at it. I need once again. This is in lieu of my book because certain people don't read. So I'm good to get into this with you.
You got one reader here.
I know. Definitely, but only because if I was to sit down with somebody and try and come up with a book, like each day's discussion would just go down another path because there's just so many stories that I just think are normal.
Yeah.
That people can find some entertainment out of and find some knowledge out of. And you have to have a certain conviction to be doing this at my age the way that I'm doing it.
Sure.
So whatever we discuss, I will not only be able to defend my position, but kind of define my position, and hopefully that'll be something that can inform some people.
I love it. Can we get a round of applause for that one more time? Are you open to take some questions from this live audience that's in here right now?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't believe you stopped with the questions. I know you'd have more from me. We're going to go for a certain amount of time.
Sometimes what happens is that I have those questions that I get to, but we end up going into different roads. Yeah. But this was, that's what I love about talking to you is that you're very, how do I put this? Decisive. Yes. I'm the one that's talking. You're very decisive about your answers. And I'm like, I'm not used to that already. Because sometimes I'll be like, you know,
yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Back in '96, you know, when I did this, the thing about it is you got to make sure that you take the fish out the water and put you were very decisive about it, and I love that we have that. So
even when I lose my train of thought totally, I make sure it's like, well, end it decisive.
No, it's all you do that, and I think we all recognize and appreciate that. So DIYers that are in, he's deliberate. Yes, Tango Jordan. DIYers, you have the opportunity to ask questions now. This is a live. This is not a premiere. Please feel free. Nashawn, did you have any questions back there? You've been listening to it. He's another one that's wise beyond his years. He's told me things. He's younger than me.
Right.
He's a lot of the reason why this year I made the pivot that I did because he was talking to me, man. We had an opportunity to go talk to another emerging and major name in independence in La Russell.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we drove up to the Bay Area, to his pergola. We had an interview. This guy was helping me drive on a 7-hour drive. We did a turnaround trip and all that. And we went to a show that he had in San Diego. That's why I love the things you're talking about your intent with the shows. I saw La Russell at this show, packed it out last minute, but he was very specific about how he maneuvered the show. Even in the beginning, he was walking around and shaking hands with everybody in there. And I'm like, there's a lot of artists that I know won't show up if they're a headliner until it's time to go on.
Oh, yeah.
He's walking around there, even in terms of the duration of the show. Mm-hmm. And having care to that. Some people have reserved to get babysitters for their kids.
Right.
And you keeping them here from 6 p.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning. And they still got to get up and go to work. Right. They still got to go up. So I do respect how intentional you are about making sure that you're giving them an experience that even surpasses what they paid for.
And here's the thing. I could get crew up with people and be able to go out and do an hour-long show. Mm-hmm. But if an hour-long show is just going to be me getting to bust a move and doing a whole bunch of stuff that people don't know, it may not be the best way for me to communicate with them. Right now, my max show is between, I can probably do a 35, maybe a 40, but my max show that I normally would do would be a 30. Because in a 30, I feel I can get all the stuff out, old stuff, new stuff, and still do that 1-2 verse thing where I'm bouncing from song to song. So my 30-minute show may have 12 pieces in it, 12, 15 pieces in it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So doing that, you put yourself into the position of the person who's watching you saying, okay, I got to get through 30. Am I going to look like I'm getting through it or does it look like I'm delivering it to them?
I'm glad you said that because there's some sets where I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I see artists that I'm like, when's the last time you jogged and you about to do an hour set? I'm like, family. These people, you shouldn't be. I say the same thing with content creation that I say with live shows. The moment you're bored, imagine that the audience is 10 times more bored than you because they can read it all over your body language, read it all over. See, whenever you get to that point, you got to start thinking about like, okay, how do I, add more life to this? So we got a couple of questions here already. This one is from Black Jedi. He says, when you wrote for Tone Loc's Wild Thing, do you still get writing credit for the song as well as publishing?
Once again, the deal I signed, I didn't get publishing on it, but I got my full writer's credit. Yes.
Okay. Afro Butterfly says, do you ever see a Black-owned music platform coming together with ownership and fair pay to artists in mind?
It doesn't even have to be Black-owned. I don't see it happening, whether it be white-owned, yellow-owned, green-owned. It's you're asking people to take something that they're getting for free and offer to pay for it. As soon as the music became free, it's done. Horses out of the barn, bye. You know what I mean? They're trying to do what they can with Tidal, but it's limited in terms of what they can do.
Right.
And it's difficult. It's just the whole advent of streaming. It's like that's a bell that cannot be unrung. You can't go back to, people are loving vinyl. Oh, we may go back to physical CDs, that kind of thing. Okay, but in terms of the majority of the music business, the horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, and I start to really. I had this conversation with Glasses Malone. We were talking about this a few months ago about, is that even the responsibility of these tech companies that are parading as music stores? I think I would have a better. This is me personally speaking about like a Spotify. I would feel better about what that thing is if I looked at them as not a music store, because it's an insult to me to look at the way the payouts and the pricing. I'm like, if you just called yourself a social media platform, I could, as an artist, see that I could use this strategy for reach as opposed to financing what I'm trying to build.
But the problem I have with that is that on the one hand, people want to democratize it. So like, the streaming services are so great because you don't have to go through the barrier to entry of a record deal. The problem is it's too much music.
Yeah.
And it's too much music that people don't, there's too much music that people don't listen to.
Right.
So when they say, we want to make a limit, so you have to make $3 in a month for us to send you a check. What other business are they going to send you a check if you make $250?
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
If you're a plumber and you can't make $250 in a month, then you probably don't want to be a plumber. But this is the thing you're going to stand on and say, I made music and there's $2.50. Y'all got to get it to me. You can't support a business like that in any realm. Right. And this is coming from somebody that I've written musician on my tax return since I've been able to pay taxes.
Right.
So, at some point there has to be some level of realism with it. And a lot of, no offense, and a lot of people that have problems with the streaming services are ones that wouldn't be making money, with selling music. Right. So I've reached this many people and I've only have this little bit amount of money. It's like, well, welcome to the world of the streaming.
Right. And I don't take any insult to it. If anything, I look at it and I say, I think that the way that streaming was constructed and the way that I came into two different generations, I still was at the tail end of selling CDs. I still was at the tail end of selling physical merch. So I've had the opportunity to sell to someone face to face, and they just saw me rock a show and I'm telling them about the music, and I had that experience. So I always have that as an advantage, as a skill set. My thing was, for this to be the primary focus of where I'm pushing my entire business could not be a sustainable model, right. Especially if this is also the way that you get better shows if they're looking at your streaming numbers. So my thing was, can I use the same creativity that goes into this music to build up a special experience in packaging in my physical music that says this is not about buying CDs? Right? Most of the folks who buy CDs and vinyls either don't have records, don't have a record player or don't have a CD player, but they want the autograph. Right. They want to be able to say that, oh yeah, this is Curtis King. I support him. They want to tell the story. What I'm saying is, for us to think that streaming is the only way leaves a lot of money on the table, especially if you have these skill sets that a lot of us came up on of selling. And so that's what so my thing now, when I started, I was pretty much anti-streaming. I think a year later, as I'm starting to return some of that music back, I'm looking at it and saying, this puts more pressure on me to be more creative about my packaging and my physical music, and people are buying, right?
It's not about I look at streaming as it's not about the money I'm going to make from streaming. It's the number of people I can touch with streaming and what I can do with that number of people in another means.
Sure. Top end of the funnel. Sure.
So that's the thing. Oh, I heard the record. It's played here, played there. Got a little radio. Maybe got this license. And then it's about impressions. I heard it here, saw it in commercials. It touched me 4 or 5 times. Now I want to stream it some more, or now I want to get a piece of merch, or now I want to come to a show. It's literally using streaming as one of the impressions to get people more into you.
Which is interesting that you say that, because that's why I keep calling it a social media platform, because then everything that I had as a critique of Spotify is the same thing that I could really say about an Instagram. And that I'm putting all this work and all this energy into producing content, and they used to pay out bonuses. They don't pay anymore, but I still see the advantage because of the reach it gives me and the opportunity to bring those people into the website. And first of all, just to enjoy the music. Like, I love the fact that my music is enjoyed, but second of all, to make a sustainable business, because now they said, had I not saw you on my timeline as much as I did, same thing as when you see a commercial 5 or 6 or 7 times, you make a buying decision in marketing. It's the same situation now where it's like, okay, because I went direct to consumer exclusively for a year, that forced me to make better content. It forced me to make better packaging for my music. I'm like, I should have been doing this.
Right.
But now that I'm in that space, I'm like, oh, that's the advantage. Also, I also have sales skills when I talk to people. So I look at it as not, an anti, we got to have to figure this out. I look at it as, why am I not using more of those cheat codes to further build the foundation of a business that I plan on passing along to my son at some point?
Right.
And I feel like in making that decision, so many things have changed as a ripple effect of it, because streaming was never a perfect model.
Right.
They'll even admit it. It was very reactionary in the moment, right? Where it's just, okay, this pirating has happened. We got to figure this. But we've stayed in the same place, without any regard for the economy and where it's at. It's been the same spot, are very similar in terms of the payout. And that's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's right.
You know what I mean? We got some more questions.
Yeah, please do.
So what was this one? It says, Viral Beat says, how was your experience performing at the Gathering of the Juggalos?
I've never performed.
You never performed at Gathering of the Juggalos?
I've met Violent J, and I've heard him say nice things about me, but I've never, and I think I've been offered it, or there was talk about me doing it, but I've never done that. I've heard different different reactions, from different people that have performed there. But
Viral, you got to do your homework, Viral. Yeah. It's all good, Viral. Deshaun Fields says, when the topic of fitness and health came up with touring, I'm curious because I'm trying to figure that out. So what is your workout regimen for touring when you started, and has it changed over time?
I mean, as you get older, you can't work out as much. I'm in the gym twice a week. I try and do that somewhere between Monday and Thursday, because the touring usually will take me from, red eye Thursday night till Sunday.
Right.
So I make sure I get a couple workouts in, try and keep my diet as tight as it can be at home. Watch for dehydration on the planes, not only in terms of lack of water,
sure,
overall, but also lack of water in your digestive system. You can get constipated very easily if you're flying a lot.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
And the times that you eat, and what you eat, and how much you eat, and making sure you chew your food thoroughly, and the supplements you take, all those things. It's like, what you eat is going to come back to you at some point, and if you make it habitual, it's going to come back to you at some point. And on the stage, you can feel that. If you're in front of people and you're feeling sluggish or whatever, or you're feeling undernourished, all of that stuff will come back.
Man, I saw a quote in a book that said, your body is always keeping count.
Right. No, that's
no matter what.
That's really true.
So there's another question here from Afro Butterfly. What labels allow you to keep your publishing, writing, and other credits?
I mean, all of them can, if you come in not desperate, or you come in a little bit prepared.
Sure.
If you have somewhat of and I think it's easier to do now with all the streaming, with all the DIY independent opportunities. If I'm able to go and get radio play, get streams, get momentum, get some licensing deals and the like, and a major comes to me, I can say, I don't want this, I don't want that, I want you for this and this and this, and you can customize somewhat of a deal, because they see that you can make the train move on your own.
Yeah.
And if they can see that, then them trying to stop the train to, put all their people on it may not be the thing. They may have to be running to the side and jump on. That's what you want. Have them jump on a moving train. Don't let them stop your train to get it moving again themselves.
And there's so many people who are like wanting them to move the train for them. And it's like, you don't want to be in that situation because you're going to be on the other side talking about, oh, they did this to me and did this to me. And it's like, got to get your business in order. And I'm glad that you're stressing that. This other question that was here, how do you feel, this is a topic that's come up a few times, especially in the space of independent and all these different things that are going on. How do you feel about musicians, rappers having their own union, more so in the vein of actors and the SAG unions?
Well, if it was like SAG, where you had to have a certain level of role and a certain amount of income to join the union, I'd be for it. But if you try and make a Spotify type union where I'm making $250 a month, I need to be in the union.
Right.
No, it's like the plumber that can't make $250 saying he wants to be in a plumber's union.
And making decisions that affect the other people who are generating that income is unfair.
Exactly. And the thing is that, look, if you're a plumber and you can't fix the toilet, you're not really a plumber.
Right.
If you're a doctor and you can't do an operation, you're not really a doctor. But if you're a singer and you can't sing, that's somebody's opinion. Because if they think you look good enough in the video, or you're tight enough in the sweater, or somebody who hook you up, all of a sudden you're a good singer, you're a good rapper, you're a good performer. That would be the problem of a union. You couldn't tell somebody they weren't qualified to be in it.
And my biggest objection to it was kind of similar, but it was in the vein of, as an independent artist versus someone who's a major label signed artist, would I want that decision making to affect mine, because my business model and its structure is completely different from someone who has a team, who has someone making decisions about their marketing, their wardrobe, their stylist, and all these things. All those things fall upon me. I don't want someone who's secure in letting go of the freedom of doing these things to affect my freedom here, because that was the autonomy was the whole point of independence for me.
And if the union dues were based on level of income, then the major label artists would always have more of the impact.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want whatever they're doing to them that they regret happening, them being able to be in a position to do it to me. And if anything, I think I could see it more so working in a major label union or independent union. And once again, with the criteria that you're talking about of, you must make this amount to even be at the table.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a right to go in there and say, all right, Russell, Currency, listen to me. This is what I think you guys should do. Like, that's not fair. That's not fair to what they've built, because they've actually built businesses with systems and delegation and whatnot. But I also wouldn't want them, making those decisions for me as well. So I get it. Tango Jordan says, where do you find your beats now?
I make them.
You make them? Are you producing everything that you're doing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What are you using?
MPCX.
MPCX, okay.
MPCX, Roland Integra, 2 Roland Phantoms, and 3 Motif XSs.
Nice. Okay. All right. What's your toolbox? Oh, never mind. You just answered that. What's your toolbox for production?
And before you answer that, before you say the next question, this is something I wanted to say. As soon as I started producing and I made money, the first thing I did is I bought an exact duplicate set of my equipment, so I didn't have to break up anything at home to go to the studio. I have a home set.
Oh, wow.
I have a home set because it's the output. So computerized people, whatever you. But even having a second computer may not be a bad idea. But I have a home set that I keep plugged in at home, and I have a road set in travel bags that's good to go to the studio, throw it in the trunk, and go. All I'm moving is software. That's how you do it.
That's the move. And it's funny because Nashawn got me on that with the way we do content now as artists, because he's an artist as well, is that we'll get out there and he has a system, and I don't know if you noticed, you changed my way of doing it to where instead of doing a performance shot out and about and then hoping that I can hear the music loud enough in the camera, I'll bring the whole laptop out, I'll bring my interface, and I'll have the music playing out of a Bluetooth speaker. And by the time I press record on OBS, the software on here, and I stop recording, that video just has to be chopped down and zoomed in.
Right.
Keyframed, add the text, but it's pretty much already color corrected and done. But that automation is what allows you to do more of the things you want to do, which is why I love so much of the AI, because I'm like, they were right when they used to say that you could not make it independently without a team, right? There was no debating that, even though I tried to fight it with everything I had as a DIYer. But now it's like, no, there are certain tools, for instance, like a Canva for artwork.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I use Canva for pretty much my thumbnails, for my artwork. And even now, ChatGPT has a feature where I could tell it, I need your help brainstorming for artwork for this song. Here's some of the lyrics in the song. What does this inspire you to do? And it'll give me an image, and I'm like, that's about 40% the way there. What if we took this, did this, and then we come together in collaboration? Like the saying that they always say, AI is not going to replace you, but someone who uses AI is going to replace you. And so that's why I'm encouraged to hear how much, you're kind of utilizing it and really honing in on it, because that makes our lives easier.
Yeah. No, it does, and a lot of what AI does, at least in my opinion, would be cut out some of the busy work and the grunt work. Mm-hmm. The creative work will still come from me, or the idea of knowing what not to keep or what to throw out or what to add to will still be the creative part that comes from me. But instead of slaving away over something for hours or days at a time, if it can do it in that amount of space and actually have you jump forward to where you can start making creative decisions from a higher level of completion, that's a good place to be.
Why wouldn't we? Yeah. I think Childish Gambino, our Donald Glover, said in an interview, he said, imagine if Elvis would have had as easy as it is for us to record today, if the process would have been as quick as it is, he said maybe he would have been a better actor.
Yeah. No, that's right.
with all due respect to those who are fans of it, but I heard that and I was like, I get what he's saying, and that we're able now to dedicate more time to the things that we really, really want to get into, and the things that we're trying to venture into. Our learning curve is a lot quicker than it was before, because there's tools now through the utilization of AI to help us with that. So this is a very specific question from Niles. He says, any particular memories of working with the Dust Brothers or Mario Caldato?
Oh, wow. So Mario Caldato was the house engineer for Delicious Vinyl. All the records were done by Mario in Matt Dyke's apartment on Santa Monica Boulevard. It was like Santa Monica. I want to say Santa Monica and Gower. He had a second floor apartment. Matt had so many records that the floor bowed from the weight of the records, and he got in trouble with his landlord from that. So that's Matt. That's Matt. The Dust Brothers. It was. I mean, Mike and John were great to work with. The irony of it is that before they became known with Beck, with Beastie Boys, with a lot of the rock stuff we did, they did. They did Know How. They did some other work on the records, with me. I've told the Know How story, but I wrote that record at 112 beats per minute to a track of mine. Dust Brothers got a hold of it, so this would sound great over Shaft, and they do it at 117 beats a minute. So I'm running a steeplechase just to do it. And now a lot of DJs will even want to play it at a higher speed. But part of the rapid fire attack of that record is because the Dust Brothers, were like, okay, we like this faster track. Hopefully Marvin can do it to this track. So they were very insightful, and like Paul's Boutique as just a sample garden. I mean, it's a masterpiece. It's just so well done. There's so many things you can go back and look at and learn from. Those guys really were good. I think the first thing they scored, or one of the first things they scored, was Fight Club.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So yeah, you look up the Dust Brothers. It's amazing. I know a lot of my musical growth came from watching them and working with them.
Yeah, someone just said Paul's Boutique can never be made again.
Yeah.
Afro Butterfly asks also, you got some really great questions. Everybody's asking questions. Shout out to y'all. What is your work-life balance like now? How many hours of creation a week? And I kind of had that question about, because I know you're so strategic about even like what you're doing with the gym. How are you sharpening and keeping the skills sharp?
Well, I treat the studio like an office, even at home. I can't really sit for 5, 6, 7 hours in a row and just be going through steps of creation. I need to do an hour, a couple hours, and step away from it and have it going in my mind while I'm doing something else. Okay, and then from that idea, I had a friend of mine who passed away, but he was a screenwriter, and the thing he said is like, never write your last scene down. So the last idea that you have in the studio that you want to put in the track, keep that in your brain and walk away. and then build the next ideas on the idea in your brain. So instead of it being the last step, you even if you wanted to put it in the track, you can make it the last step and build on top of it. But a lot of times you say, don't even write the scene down. Have that be the first thing you're going to do the next time you come in the studio. And then what does that
makes sense.
What does that make happen for you? So to say the work-life balance, I go back and forth. So I'll play the video games and I'll go down the YouTube rabbit hole and I'll read books and I'll do other things that'll take up a little bit of time to just get my mind focused off of, man, did I get that snare right? Man, you know what I mean? Because you put so much pressure on yourself doing that, that you're not going to get the best record out of yourself. Yeah. And a lot of times I find like if I find like I'm stuck or I go in and I don't like it, I'll turn the machines off and sleep on it.
Right.
Then when I get up in the morning, the new ideas that I have building on the last thing that I did. Because a lot of times if I work for 5, 6, 7 hours in a row, I'll come back and just, if I'm constantly putting things into the track, I'll end up pulling stuff out or changing things or whatever. Or I may take the time to say, okay, let me let the track play in the background and listen to some samples. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you're saying that because oh my God, I'm actively trying to tell myself, Curtis, you won the day, bro. You won the day. Like figuring out what that means. First of all, I don't write more things on my to-do list. If I can't do it great, I'm not writing it down.
Right.
And that's kind of like that's the way that I found peace in it. If I can't do it great, I'm not writing it down. And I look at the list and I'm like, yeah, there's so many things we could do in this next hour. But why do we need to do it right now?
Every day, end the day saying, am I better off tonight than I was this morning? When you wake up in the morning, am I better off this morning than I was yesterday morning?
Right.
Whether it be in the completion of a song, completion of content, even in terms of the evolution of your thinking towards your creativity. Am I in a better place today than I was yesterday? If that's true, make tomorrow better than today. That's it.
That's amazing. I love that. What fuels your creativity these days?
My wife to a certain extent.
Okay.
Only because she, shout out to Chantal. It's like to see the joy that she has when I'm enjoying myself doing it. Number one, but also, Curtis, and I'll be honest with you, man. It's like Bust the Move hit when I was 22 years old. The vast majority, 90+% of people in my life that aren't family knew me after I was famous. So there are a lot of people that are close to me that I have 20+ year relationships with that have never gone on the ride with me on a hit record.
Wow.
So a big part of what I want to be successful for is to take the ride with the people that are in my life, because the people in my life are with me because of me. Yeah, Young SC may be famous, whatever, but in terms on a day-to-day basis, they're talking to a regular guy, Marvin.
Yeah.
So me being able to take some of my experience and share that with people that are in my life, but that weren't in my life in 1989, that's a big motivation for me.
I love that. I love that.
And also, to be honest, I feel like I have the best knowledge about songwriting, producing, making a hit record than I ever have in my life. And I still have the body to deliver it. I still have the health. So that's another important thing about health on the road and all that. But I still have the vessel to deliver it. So if I can put the best art into the vessel and deliver it, and then know I'm in a town that I can look around and realize what things are and what they aren't, and just enjoy the process, let alone the opportunities that come along. Oh yeah, I will take that call. Oh, I will talk to that person. I'll have my people reach out to those people based on whatever. The fact that I can take advantage of all of that, and going back to it, that I can do the best thing that I can in the moment, and make that be the root to everything that comes after it. That's a big deal, dude. That really is. That's a big motivation for me.
So, and I want to kind of continue that energy of those questions. What would you consider, I guess, for you? I know you've had, this is going to be a crazy question because you've had so many moments in doing what you do, but today, what would you say is like one of the most proudest moments that you've had in this journey?
Really just seeing how far rappers go, beefs aside and all that, to see like what, to see what Drake's done in terms of what he's done creatively, to see what Kendrick has done as a lyricist, to be known as the preeminent lyricist and being from the West Coast. I can't tell you the stuff that I heard when I'm spitting good lyrics coming out of the West Coast. And, well, you don't sound like a West Coast. All that stuff. It's like lyricists and West Coast artists weren't necessarily in the same sentence early on. Regardless, to see that go on, to see the 50 Cent making a vitamin water deal, just like all the things that people can parlay hip hop into. That's some of the proudest stuff. It's not even necessarily my accomplishment, but any little role I may have played in somebody feeling confident enough to jump into something big like that because of what I did. I've had people come up to me and say that they were inspired by what I did, and that made them go forward with what they were doing, and they've been able to do amazing things. Right. That's a proud moment for me.
Next question to follow up that one is, what are you most excited about that's coming up?
The next song, the next single, like, it's so funny. When I first went out with the first single, I was talking to a couple of, distributors, and one had, a couple meetings with, and they wanted to know where the album was. I'm like, the album ain't made yet. The album's not made yet. This is not 1992 where I hand you an album and you see if the next Bust a Move is on it.
Right.
It's like, here's the single. We're going to push that and we're going to see what the reaction is to it. And then here's the next single and we're going to push that, see what the reaction. And then here's the next single. And then from that 3 or 4 times, you get one that cracks and you're able to make a record. Not only based on the fact you have a hit single, but you have a track record of what certain types of songs have done and not done in the marketplace. So it's a smart approach. I'm not burdened by a label saying it's going to be 6 months or 12 months or 18 months before your album comes out. It'll be out whenever I can get it done and put it out.
And you produce. So I mean, that I think that's the thing as me as producer as well. Like when I produce my own stuff, it does give me the flexibility to say, wait a minute. And it's something I had to like do a mental shift for myself where I was maneuvering like I was still signed to an independent label, which I was at one point. And I was setting deadlines that didn't make sense for how shrunk my team is now, because it's really me and the video editor and, independent freelancers. And then I also was like applying steps that didn't make sense for the kind of autonomy that I now have.
Going back to an earlier point, put yourself in the place of the listener. What do they see? What do they not see? The steps that you put in that you agonize over, is that going to make any difference in the music?
Probably not.
Exactly.
Especially I talked to my guy Eloquent as a producer from Canada, and he's like, bro, I'll spend 40 minutes trying to look for the right snare. And he's like, it's terrible. He said, I'm just terrible to myself because I know by the time it comes out, they're not going to give a damn about what snare I use on it.
Right. But you know what? But he will.
He will. And he knows the difference. Yeah. Can we talk about Same Gang?
Sure.
For a second.
Everybody asked me about Same Gang.
I got to ask about that. Especially because I got so many West Coast
now that I look at it, it is the number 3 song of mine on Spotify. Bust a Move, No How, Same Gang.
Yeah. First of all, can we talk about, because in a lot of ways, I get inspired, and you don't hear many people say this, I get inspired by Arsenio Hall as I start to kind of move my artists and try to balance my artistry with my media space, and I get into doing interviews like this. Like, this is an honor to be sitting down with you. But I look at it and I'm like, I see in a lot of ways that I remember as a kid, there was a certain warmth and a difference of a kind of interview that you got with an Arsenio, because he seemed to be more in tune with the culture than as opposed to like another late night host who's just kind of asking surface level questions. So performing at the Arsenio Hall, like, and that wasn't the series finale of the last, it was just
No, it was
a particular show.
It was the Same Gang was an episode where they brought everybody together. We performed it. Here's the thing: on Arsenio, you never felt you were going through the car wash.
What do you mean?
Meaning that, this is just the one that's here right now. We'll clean him up, shine him up, and send him on his way. It felt special to Arsenio, everybody that came on that show.
Yeah.
It never felt like it was just another day for him. And and I was on that show multiple times. My shtick with him was the first time I came on, they sat me on bench or something like that out by the stage, or slapped me on one of the risers out by the stage and didn't take me to the couch. So I made sure the next time I came on that I mentioned the fact that I wasn't on the couch and that I was able, you know what I mean? But he understood and knew that and whatever. But it was just it was just different, man. It was just a different approach. And the Same Gang thing was so special because everybody was there. And I was good friends with Eazy-E. Wouldn't let me hug him because he's wearing a bulletproof vest on TV. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
right.
All those things were wonderful. And the Same Gang thing, I look back on it now with such fondness because it was such a big deal for me. To be included in it, but also to show that I was a lyricist being included in it.
See, and that's the question I have because I don't have enough context. I can study but I can't know because I wasn't there. For you, especially being an artist, and I hate to make it so surface level when I say this, but you being an artist that didn't necessarily cuss in your rhymes.
Yeah.
For you being someone that, was it known at the time that you weren't originally from LA?
Oh yeah, everybody knew that.
They knew that.
Yeah.
To be that deep within LA culture, and then also like the gang politics that were going on in there, and you weren't affiliated.
No.
To be in that space, like, what do you think was the difference with you that made everybody like, yeah, of course, that has to happen?
Well, because I had hits before Bust a Move, like Let Them Know My Name Is Young, Know How, even Got More Rhymes. The flip side, like I was telling, people was like, oh yeah, I was locked up over the weekend and somebody had played that. You know what I mean? Just like
right.
So like cultural things or spaces that you wouldn't necessarily see me in. That's number one. And number two, that I came in as an East Coast rapper and was not claiming East Coast, was not like banging the East Coast drum. And I was respecting where I was from. And I could see the issues that were going on. I had fights break out. I've seen guns pulled at clubs, West Coast clubs. So I knew
the lay of the land.
I knew the lay of the land, and I wanted to be sure that even though I was given a perspective from someone who wasn't affiliated, I wanted to give a heartfelt and really lyrical perspective.
You did,
and then like Conception saying, "Okay, I want you on it," not because you got your Bust a Move record, but there's people that will listen to this song because you're on it, or just to hear what you did, and they may listen to the people around you and listen to the whole vibe of the song. And I think that helped. Even
when I look in the comments today, like I was still seeing people who were talking about how much of a standout verse that you had on that record.
And the thing is, at the moment, in the time, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna just give my 16. But I've had other artists come up to me and tell me, how much they thought of that verse in that record. And I felt that I was under-equipped because I wasn't from here originally, because I wasn't affiliated. It's like, all I can do is give my best lyrical representation of an outsider. An outsider that's here, but an outsider in terms of background. So people saying, how good the verse was lyrically, that wasn't the thing in the moment. Just the fact that I was on the record and all of us were doing it and what we were trying to get the ideas out, fine. But in terms of the lyrical approach to the record, that really didn't become a thing until years later.
So the question is, I have a very specific question about that too, because when I was hearing you talking about that on the Drink Champs, I was like, I didn't realize until I've seen that video many a times. I've seen it be on the box. I've seen it on all these different places. I've seen it on MTV Jams. I didn't realize that so many of those verses were recorded in different locations and separately from one another, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
My question is, what happened between there and being able to perform that at the Arsenio Hall show? Because everybody's there, right, for that.
Yeah.
For what you can share, I should say.
No. I'm laughing because I could ask you the same thing about the pop out.
Yeah, and that's why I'm bringing it home too. Yeah.
I've only put those two things together because it's one thing to say to make the record, and it's another thing to say to make the video. But the Arsenio Hall performance, there was probably things, I know that there were things put to the side the way that things were put to the side.
Because of what this means for the moment,
And seeing us on national TV, black show, black host, only one, you gonna mess his shit up?
For your personal situation? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And ironically, even though Eazy's walking around in a bulletproof vest, there was no beef, and there was never any, at least in my, but once again, I'm naive at that point, but there was no talk of something happening at that taping.
Right.
Like, yo, this one is going to get into this. Keep this away from that. I'd have heard something.
Mm-hmm.
There was no talk of that. Now, somebody else may have another story, but I just saw everybody in line. We were like rocking back and forth, and people would come out and do that. I was in an unfortunate short set that day, but it was a poor fashion choice. Right. But having said,
it happens.
But having said that, we come out, do our verse, and go on and do the next thing.
Right.
Cool.
All right. And you see some of the criticism that circulates. I mean, obviously, we start with the love of seeing something like that happen at that time, seeing something happen after Nipsey had passed away, and seeing a lot of, rival gangs coming together. And the pop out, I think what makes it so, and you got to give credit to everyone who's already took a step in that direction for that to happen to begin with. But when I see the pop out show, I'm recognizing, like, even though these are artists from rival gangs, a lot of them go to the same place, whether it be a podcast, whether it's, some of them even are involved in the same labels. Some of them are involved in the same collaborations, working with the same producers. So it's kind of like that was already heading in that direction. But now here we are at a place where I think that not only do the people want to come together for a moment, I think they want to be amongst each other. Like, I think there's a difference of let's do this for the cause, and then I actually am interested in seeing what a collaboration will look like between us.
An overall thought that I have just in life in general is there's a lot more commonality in the human experience than we give ourselves credit for. So you could have white guy, trailer park, poverty, and you could have black guy, hood, bricks, and they could talk about things that seem totally unrelated, and then realize what the relation is. So when you had it with different sets in different places and whatever, and they say, well, I've been through this. Oh, I'm going through the same thing. Been through I'm going through this. You see some of these rap country collaborations, and 20 years ago, you'd never see anything like that.
Two together.
But there is a commonality in human experience that comes through in some of that music that resonates.
I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad it's happening, and I'm grateful for those of you that have made that happen beforehand to give the vision, because I remember watching that video and I'm like, I think about that song. I think about you headed for self-destruction. I think about all of these moments.
And I'll say real quick, me and Tone Loc are the only two people to be both in that self-destruction video.
Both of those. Come on.
The same video. So.
Shout out to Tone Loc, man.
Yeah, exactly.
One day, man, I gotta cross paths with him, because
I want to talk to you about some stuff though. Because there's some things that I want to do just in terms of getting people from back in the day together. And
for sure.
You're such an appreciative person in terms of the history and especially the West Coast history.
Come on, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to champion, like, that's the one thing I wanted to do with this platform, and why I'm glad that we're talking today, because what is going to mean for others who see this as a space of the culture, a safe space of the culture. I'm not here for the clicks. I'm not here for, looking for the salacious material. My thing is, your stories are rich in themselves, and there's things that we are not even privy to. The fact that you were able to share about your creative process, that's what I watch an interview for, is getting to know those tidbits. Right. But I know so much of this time period is all about the headlines, and I get it and what it is. But I still feel like even in this space, and this Arsenio Hall type energy can exist, where he didn't make it about that. Right. He'd bring it up, but he's like, that's not the center focus. He got interviews out of a Pac that you wouldn't see.
Right. No, that's people usually right get. About that. Yeah. No,
and right. Pac even looked like he was a little bit more relaxed in that environment as well.
We all were.
Yeah.
We all were.
Yeah.
I did David Letterman, and David Letterman was great. That show at the time, they wouldn't let you go to track. So Paul Schaefer had to do an arrangement of Bust a Move.
What?
My DJ Tony G, original mixmaster, was playing bongos.
Why wouldn't they let you go to track?
Because it's a union thing, that the music has to be from live musicians or whatever. So that was one of the first performances, and then I did a lot with Byron Allen as well. My subsequent albums, I did stuff with. So I see Byron Allen and all the stuff he's done in media and all the acquisitions or whatever, and I'm like happy to have been a part of that in its infancy. Man, you see what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Yeah.
Well, look, man, I thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
I know we're gonna definitely make sure we get this that show track situated. But DIYers, I appreciate y'all being here in the live audience. It always is a little bit different when we do these shows live. Definitely, where should they reach out to you to connect or even to stay in tune with the new music and things that you have coming up?
Young MC 89 is my Instagram, and I'm trying to get my followers up with that. I got the Facebook Young MC and X and the I Love the 90s tours doing most of the country. I have a lot of shows between now and the end of the year, and I'm still coming with music, So every few months still coming with something, and hopefully it'll be an album at some point next year. And I'm happy, man. I'm happy to be in a place where I can do the thing that I want. I can do exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, and it is inspiring is an understatement, especially as I look and I'm like, you give me the inspiration to be like, slow down, Curtis. Yeah. Slow down. You don't have to do it all in this window of time because of what someone else might have told you. This is a career. Set yourself up for it to be a business and a career.
This is the thing. I met a writing teacher who said that you should be writing every day, and I just don't believe that. If you feel that you have control over your gift, then you don't need to be spewing it out every day, hoping that something sticks and you'll find a hit out of there. If you're writing songs, if you write 100 songs, you're either taking little bits of the actual creativity you have and spreading it over 100 different songs.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Or you're writing the same song 100 times.
And I feel like that's what people do.
And neither of those work.
I don't want to hear your recycled thought for the 100th time.
So sometimes in the creative process, keeping the machines off and staying away from them until you feel like you're gonna burst may be the best thing for you. Whether that's days or hours or whatever. Not ignoring it, but just getting to the point like, okay, this is a gift that I can that I feel like I can control. Let me get in here and let me use it. And then when I've used it, enough for this sitting, let me step away, think about it, and get ready for the next sitting.
Something I love about the way that you described your home office and studio is that it reminds me of a principle that I learned in a book called Not War of Art, but Art of War by Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah, I know that book, yeah.
Right? And you remember he talks about in there that, we'll try to attack creativity through quantity, but he's like, really, you just got to make sure that you're in the seat when the muse comes to find you.
Yeah, and that's the war of art. Is the
war of art. Yeah. So I think that does it to where you may be in the office that day to take care of some paperwork, to take care of some, just some clerical work or whatever. But being in that environment sometimes is still doing part of that work that you need.
I'm a big sample guy, like not in terms of samples from records or whatever, but like royalty free sample CDs and loops and that kind of thing, where that are you can use without copyright infringement and that kind of stuff. So I will dig if I know the BPM of the song, if I kind of know the key of the song, whatever. I will dig and find as many samples that'll fit that song without putting them into the song, but I'll have a folder that will be song title and then sounds after it. And as I'm making the track and building the track, I'm playing the samples one at a time after the other. Oh, this one sounds good. I know it's the right speed, definitely. So over the beat, this one sounds good. Let me put that over here. And it could be an instrument I'm not even thinking about. But what if I flip it? What if I turn it around? What if I reverse it? What if I cut it into pieces and put it on beats? Just the samples will take the creativity of making the track in a different direction. So if I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily want to play something over this right now, let me find some samples for it. That could take me down a rabbit hole for a couple of hours, and then turning around, I may find a sample that inspire me to play something else.
You still, that's why, I had a therapist one time that said, when you have an injury of the legs, arm on your body, you can measure it. You can get a cast and see how long, you can measure how long it's going to take to repair. When you have injuries of the mind, it's not so easy to measure those. That made me go down a rabbit hole of thinking of, well, how do I know when I'm properly exercising creativity unless I'm physically doing that? I think that what you're sharing with me right now is kind of like what I do with, you ever use Splice?
I know of it. I don't use it, but yeah.
Splice is the same kind of situation. Instead of, instead of it being on physical, drives or whatever, now you can have a database, a cloud of like 2 million something samples, plus just sitting with the samples and letting that create melodic ideas in my head, to me feels like an exercise that I can't necessarily measure, but I know it's occurring because I'm hearing the process of doing it. So yeah, that's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah,
Well, I look, I thank you again, once again, ladies and gentlemen.
No more questions?
I mean, I could talk to you all day long, but I'm,
no, not for you. I meant for the people.
For the people, yeah. I think they're sitting on here now,
okay,
in awe of the questions they already had.
All right, just making sure, dude. Just
we appreciate you being thorough with it too. No,
it's all right.
Shout out to my DIYers because they definitely have asked all those questions. I do believe that's what it is.
Cool.
Well, Niles has one more. Let's end on this note.
Yes, sir.
So many of your peers went on to sign younger acts and take management roles without an economics degree, by the way. Did that not appeal to you, or am I just not in the know?
I just don't like the idea of crushing someone's dream. Mm-hmm. So if I tell them the record didn't sell because the label didn't like it or people didn't like it or whatever, a lot of times artists will have an unreasonable expectation, like, oh, I put so much of myself into this and I may not be, great in school. I may not be great in these other things, but I know as an artist I'm going to win. Mm-hmm. So they put all the coping mechanisms from other failures into what the music could potentially be.
Right.
And then are you going to be the one to deliver it to? Well, this is something they don't like, about you too. Mm-hmm. I just didn't want to go through that.
I hear that.
And it's like I can step away. I went through it myself, but I'm at the point where I can step away and I can make some music and I can judge it, for what it is and what it isn't. Mm-hmm. There's people that they want to put this is what they said about music videos when they first started. Everybody wants to put the best representation of their entire life in their first music video. Mm-hmm. And that's too much pressure, dude.
Yeah.
So the first record, the first whatever, and I know what it takes to get out on the road. I know what it takes to get on stage. I know what it takes to do the radio runs and all that other stuff. You have somebody get in, it's like, as soon as Young MC signs, I'm signed. So I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to do that anymore.
That's when the work begins.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to pay money to have that happen? I'm sorry.
Right.
No, I'm good.
I'm paying, so I'm not paying to jump on the momentum and to invest into it. I'm paying for you to push the brakes on it.
Right.
And from that's where I start to have a bit of empathy for sometimes the labels, sometimes the investors, because I've seen it happen even with my own business where I'd hire somebody to do ads for me and I'm like, oh, okay, somebody's doing ads. I have a voice in all these places. I don't have to push.
Right.
But it's like, no, it was going to work because you were pushing. Mm-hmm. And in addition to this, let's just put let's amplify some of those efforts in other places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Man.
Cool,
ladies and gentlemen, Young MC, one more time, round of applause. Incredible. All right, DIYers, you already know we're going to keep this up here. I will go back and I will timestamp this and all that good stuff. I appreciate y'all. I will make sure I put all the information down there below in the show notes. And, stay tuned for more. Thank you, Nishan, for holding it down, sir.